Hey everyone, you made it to our show, Oak Road Diaries. It's a podcast where we get to take a journey into the lives of different experts, and we get to explore their roots and their own self-care practices.
In each episode, we dive deep into their personal philosophies, daily rituals, and transformative experiences from their lives, which offer all of us valuable insights and practical tips for our own well-being.
Join us as we uncover the wisdom behind intentional living, one story at a time.
On this episode of Oak Road Diaries, we're joined by Vince Dickerson, a breathwork practitioner and the creator of Overflow Breathwork, which is a powerful guided practice that blends music, conscious breathing, and meditation to release emotional weight and restore inner clarity. Vince also leads intimate breathwork breakthrough sessions, offering people the chance to reset their nervous systems, move through deep emotional blocks, and experience profound renewal.
What makes Vince's work so impactful is that it's born from his own healing journey. After a devastating breakup left him struggling with grief, anxiety, and self-doubt, he discovered breathwork as a catalyst for transformation. In his first session, just his first, he realized just how much we store in the body and how simply breathing with intention could create profound shifts.
His clients echo this, describing his sessions as cathartic, freeing, and even life-changing. And during our conversation, this wasn't just theory. Actually, one of our hosts experienced a breakthrough in real time, which is a moving testament to the power of Vince and his guidance.
That's right. As Jared mentioned, during the session, I experienced a real-time breakthrough, a powerful reminder of how deeply this practice can shift the mind and body when we allow ourselves to surrender to it. Together, we explore Vince's journey, the science and spirit of breathwork, and how tuning into the breath can open the door to self-discovery and transformation.
So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and join us as we step into this powerful conversation with Vince Dickerson on the healing art of breathwork.
Vince, hello. Welcome to our Oak Road Diaries show. We appreciate you having us take the time out of your day and to come on to our show to talk about yourself, man. So we appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks. My favorite subject.
Yeah. So, so tell us a little bit about yourself, man. So we came across you. We see that you're doing some incredible things with breathwork, but I don't know if you know anything about the platform that we have so far. If you've done any kind of research, just kind of looking at what we're all about.
Yeah, a little bit. Obviously, very kind of brief just when you reached out.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, happy to hear more.
So we are looking to just meet with experts across the world and to see not only, who they are, like what they're doing, how they're trying to make a bigger impact into the world, but how did you guys get to where you're at? Right. Who's Vince, right? Or who is, XYZ. So that's kind of where we want to start with. Tell us a little bit about, who Vince is, before you became this breathwork, personal coach guy.
Fuck, where to start?
Right. Your childhood, man. It could be right as far back as you remember.
I mean, a very, very, very short kind of summarized version of it is I have always been pretty entrepreneurial from very young. I studied finance at university, but I sort of at no point in that journey did I think I was going to go and get a job. It was always the idea of doing my own thing.
Sure.
And left university, had a startup with a friend, kind of worked on that for many years. We were based in London. We had a travel company. We did kind of adventure travel in Africa. It was an amazing time, but we were young and naive and hadn't quite figured out how to build a business yet. So it kind of worked for a while, but we just it sort of wasn't quite going where we wanted to go.
Sure.
And around that time, just crazily out of nowhere, I got scouted to model, to become a fashion model. So I thought, let me do this for a year or something while I figure out the next business. And that was 15.
So you just modeled for like 15
ago.
years?
So that carried on.
Okay.
Yeah, I still do. Yeah. So that's been, I
So
realized I was actually on the
about-
phone with a friend this morning and I said, it's crazy to realize that's what I've been doing. It was always meant to be this temporary thing that became this quite long career.
This fashion
Um,
model career is what you're speaking of
yes,
then, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. What
And
is
so along that
some
journey, I've
random guy
always,
came up to you and said, "Hey man, you got the look."
yeah, literally, it was one of those stories. Yeah, it was an agent,
Wow.
and yeah, and that sort of started things. So it was one of those sort of walking along the street kind of stories.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and so along that journey, I think I've always had, and this kind of ties into where I am now. There's always been a sense of like wanting to do something, and I was always very entrepreneurial. And part of that, which I've realized in hindsight, was this real desperate need to kind of prove myself. I've always felt this sense of like I should be doing more with my life, and I'm should be kind of prove how smart and great and successful I am. Um, and that led to also a long past over the past 16 years, constantly trying new projects. I just started a production company with some friends in the UK that they've run with, and I'm not involved in anymore, but have created a really successful business there. And I 2020, I launched a consumer product. It's collapsible drinking cups. So
Nice.
they're portable kind of silicone cups. You can fold down, carry them around. So we launched that and also had some good initial success with that. But I think all of these things sort of faded away. I never quite got to where I wanted to be with them. And so I was always trying something. I was always looking for the thing, for the thing, for the thing, for the thing. And then 2 years ago, I had a really kind of traumatic, I suppose is the word, breakup. The
Mm,
relationship ended. So my
mhm.
my girlfriend at the time, who became my fiance, who we started that cup company together,
Okay.
and that relationship ended, and it really knocked me, like
It hit you
crazily
down.
knocked me.
Okay.
And through my whole life, I've always been very interested in sort of personal development and consciousness and like
You were
what it
always
all means.
practicing throughout those years, or you just had this I can appreciate the self-care practices of all these things.
Yeah, I think I've always been searching, as
Okay.
we all do in some sense, whether we're aware of it or not. There was always a sense of like I needed to figure out the thing. Like this
Yep.
life has got to be, there's got to be more. I've got to something. And I think part of that sort of entrepreneurial journey was that as I was trying to prove something. I was like, if I just get everything figured out and I prove how good I am, then it'll all be okay. And so as part of that, I was trying to find the thing, like what's the
Yeah.
answer? And that led to all the self-help books and the podcasts. I was like an early
Sure.
Tim Ferriss fan. He started that whole genre of like just dissecting all this stuff and experts, and everyone has a theory, right? Like it's like
Yep.
every month there's a new book of like, you need to do this thing and then this thing, and this
It's
is the answer. And
overwhelming,
this,
isn't it?
yeah, completely overwhelming. You keep chasing it, right? You keep, because you're
Yep.
like, no, this must be the one. And
Yep. Like
and so
this
I was
this
always,
this this whole topic didn't work for me, but maybe this one will do something, or
yeah, yeah.
maybe
There's
it's
because
missing
there's
that
an
one little
answer.
part.
The sort of belief is there is an answer, and if I
Yeah.
find it, it's gonna be like then it'll all be okay. So yeah, I was always looking at stuff. I was always interested in sort of, I suppose, for lack of a better word, consciousness of like just actually what this whole experience of being a human is. And I've been meditating and things like that for a long time. But all of this was very heady stuff. It was all very intellectual in the sense of like as I say, there was an answer, and I just needed to
Mhm.
structure everything and figure out the exact answer, and everything would be okay. And then when this breakup hit me, it just knocked me so hard that none of that held up. Like
Got it.
none of these sort of theories and these self-help books and these psychology models. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just fucked. Sorry, no, can I swear on here?
Yeah, man, this is a raw thing. So yeah,
Yeah,
you give
yeah. I
us
mean, I was just absolutely fucked. Like it knocked me so hard. And part of that was, I mean, I was deeply in love, and it was
sure.
heartbreak, and there's very real human emotions. But I was also aware very early on in that of like this was more than that. Like it was just my entire sense of my life and who I was just fell apart, and there was nowhere to stand. I was just sort of free falling, and I just couldn't grasp onto anything. And I think it sent me into this pretty dark period of,
So even with those self-care practice tools that you learned over these years, when you got hit with this traumatic event, all went out the window is what you're saying.
yeah, I it just it I think I thought I was pretty savvy going into
Yeah.
that. Like I know I was the classic example of I would lecture everyone else on how they should be approaching
Mhm.
things, and you should see it this way, and just sort of be happier, and it'll all be good. And
Sure.
why are you so worried about it? And then when I got stuck into a situation, suddenly I got humbled very quickly, because now I was the one sitting on my friend's couch crying for 4 hours a day. Like
Yeah.
and it sent me into this very, very kind of dark period, as I say, where I just no energy. I was deeply depressed. I really thought my brain was broken. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
stuck here now. I guess I have depression now. I guess that's
Yeah,
where
yeah.
I am. But what it also forced me to do was I just cleared away all the bullshit. I think
Mhm.
for the first time in my life, I was forced to be very, very, very honest because it was like I need to figure this out or I'm not coming back from it.
Sure.
And that led me to a lot of introspection, a lot of conversations, and a lot of looking at stuff. And in the early stages, still very much intellectual stuff. I was still listening to every podcast that had an answer and every expert and everything that was going on. And ultimately, what happened is I think I just exhausted myself. I think, I mean,
Mhm.
I've thought about this a lot, but ultimately, I think my mind just fucking gave up on me. It was just like, just stop, dude. Like, just
Yeah.
stop. And what happened was, for the first time in my life, I just stopped trying to find the answer. And
And you're
I,
just living
I
in the moment, living in the
and I
presence or
just,
the
yeah,
emotional feeling.
and the way I frame it, I mean, I've kind of thought about this a lot and written about it a lot, but the way I frame it is like, in the space that was there, I suddenly realized the truth of who I was, of how we all are, of what it means to be human. There was this real, and it wasn't an intellectual understanding. It was more of just a felt sense of like, fuck, all of my problems, all of my fears, all of the suffering is all just stories that I am reiterating in my head. I've
Yep.
created an identity and a view of the world and a view of how I need to be and what it means to kind of be happy. And it's all just my own story. I'm torturing
Yep.
myself.
Yeah.
And that was such a profound moment of actually, it's the thinking, it's the intellectual side, it's the need to understand this all that is the thing trapping me. The intellectual, the thinking process of trying to find the answer,
Yep.
that motion is the thing that just keeps me in my mind, which is the place where all these stories are being created, and I'm like trapped in a maze of my own making.
It's a
And
maze of
that was
anxiety, basically. That's what I relate
yeah.
to it. Yeah.
And what the difference was, for the first time, it dropped into my body. I just had this sense of like expansiveness, and I had this real moment of realizing that the only thing I was ever searching for, that we're all searching for, was
Mhm.
peace,
Yeah.
freedom, love. Really, it's the sense of kind of being part of something bigger and being deeply connected to it. And it's really in that experience of love. It's the idea of no lack. It's in that moment, you don't need anything else. There is no answer because you're already there.
Yep.
And realizing that that love was something we all search for externally. So we look for the affirmation through building something or through relationships or through, it might be through affirmation from the world around us. But actually, the only place it was available was internally. And the way
Internally, yep.
to access that was to just give it, was to actually express love and to go out and it was just like, it's very simple, just love everything. And this obviously was a
Yeah.
sort of moment of understanding. And then life comes in, and now you've got to deal with practicalities and things. But that was just such a pivotal thing of like it cleared away all the need for the complexity of this belief structure or this thing or this thing. And it was just like, no, just love. Just
Just
can you
put out
love
the
what's in
love
front of you?
aspect. Okay.
Yeah, can you love what's in front of you? And in that experience of love, you actually not needing to be anywhere else. And now then the
Yeah,
question
that
is,
was
how
my
do you
next
do that?
question.
Yeah,
But
how do you put that into your practical day or
yeah,
right? Jared and
yeah,
I'm trying to I can imagine what Jared has in his head because he's gone through some crazy turmoil of stuff in the last couple months, and we all are, right? In some degree, we have our own stories to tell. But this
mm,
morning, I was looking in your Instagram feed, and what you're talking about right now is what one of your pinned videos, where
right,
you create these stories. You're the one who's creating all of your reactions to things.
yeah,
Anybody's going to do whatever they're going to do. It's we've heard it before in all those help books. You're the one who's creating the anger, the offendedness of whatever they stated. So it's all related to what you're just talking about right now, which is once you get out of your own head and just project what you're looking for, is what I
yeah.
took out of what you just said. That's when you're going to have the aha moment of,
Yeah,
wow.
it's entirely. I think the big reframing is, and that video that you're talking about is sort
Hmm.
of what I talk to in there is, nothing happens to you.
Hmm.
Things happen in the world, and there are circumstances, and some of it's not pleasant. But your suffering is very rarely to do with the actual event. It has to
Right.
do with your interpretation of it and the way that you see that impacting really your safety in the world. Because
Sure.
on a sort of biological side of things, we're all just looking for some sense of safety.
Yeah.
And so you see whatever someone else's actions are, you're just interpreting it through your lens, which is really built up of your memories. It's built up of a past. You've created some version of the world and a version of yourself, and you have this filter of really just these like waves are
Mhm.
coming in of sound and light, and then you're interpreting them in this way that impacts you. But someone, and this is absolutely easy to kind of demonstrate, of like someone could say something to you and me, I would
Mhm.
mean nothing to me, and you would, it would ruin
Oh,
your
yeah.
day.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the same vice versa, like,
Yep.
and because it's really just confirming what you already believe. And
Yep.
once you realize that, then you realize that actually it has nothing to do with reality. It all has to do with the filter that you're applying everything through, which is entirely your perspective.
Yep.
Um,
So
the
deep.
the work then becomes, well, how do you shift that perspective, or how do you at least
Yeah.
get beyond that? But the for most of us, we don't even realize that it's a perspective issue.
Yeah.
We take what we experience and our emotional response to it as truth.
Yep.
That's just the way it is. And as long as you live in your life that way, you cannot not be a victim of life, because now you're trying to control the external world for circumstances that you want to happen based on your view of how it should happen, which is impossible. You're trying to
Right.
control an uncontrollable, chaotic entity that is life.
Yeah. And you're gonna go down this hamster wheel of just anger and frustration and anxiety, and
Mm.
then you're putting blame on everyone else. And so that's what the happy atrium is about, honestly, is being intentional with your life. So in order for
Mm.
you to get to this perspective, you have to first start with the intentionality, right? Now you've throughout your life, you said that you've always been into the health and wellness of things. As a fashion model, it's almost a requirement, I would imagine, for you to be correct, to be into health and
Yeah,
wellness, physically at least, right?
yeah, yeah. To a degree, I suppose there is probably some sense of like you need to appear a certain way.
Yeah. I mean, that there's a lot of psychological, people have spoken about it for years. The
Yeah.
fashion world having that psychological, um, um, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess torment or psychological,
Yeah, I think it can go, from my experience, it can go kind of two ways. Like
yeah.
you can identify with it because it's what you
Mhm.
look like, right? Like
Sure.
that's ultimately what it is. And you could argue there's sort of some experience and personality and all that, but really
Hmm.
it comes down to just straight genetics, which is something you have absolutely zero control over. You sort of so it can go two ways. It can really mess you up in that you identify with how you look as sort of tied in with your value. So
Yep.
now you go for a job and get rejected. Now you're taking it as like, well, I'm not good looking enough, or like they don't
Hmm.
want me, the rejection issue. Or it can be something very empowering in the sense of like it's just a job, and it can actually almost, for some people, I see like, and I feel like actually women do this better than guys in my experience. We have a bit
Okay.
more ego around this in general.
I would imagine.
um,
Yeah.
but they just attach it. It's just a job. Like this, it's you. My looks are nothing I have control over, and that is the thing. And I show up in the best way I can. If they like me, they like me. If they don't, they don't. It's purely like this is a business decision. They don't actually. No one really cares what you look like. They care whether you fit the narrative that their marketing wants to sell. Like, am I going to sell more T-shirts? I mean,
Sure.
ultimately, that's what it comes down to. And so it can be quite empowering. Of actually, you can just let go of identifying with it. But if you do identify with it, as you say, it can
Can really
destroy you,
mess.
because then
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
constant game of rejection.
So I'm going to go back on that comment. So you said that women tend to do a better job at that.
No,
Keep it
there's no science behind
or
it. I just I think
yeah,
in
yeah,
my
from just your
experience,
your experience. Yeah.
and I think in general, as part of the work I do, I definitely, women grow up faster
Yeah.
than men. I think they're a bit
Hmm.
more responsible in the world because they're forced to be, right? We are
Yeah.
able to live a world that there's slightly
Yep.
less consequence, just, and so by definition, I think a lot of men now, you see a lot of like, there's sort of a lot more talk about men's groups and kind of
Yeah.
men expressing stuff, and a lot of repressed stuff there. Part of that is that we aren't forced to grow up in the same way, of like the
Hmm.
world has less consequence to us. I think a lot of men don't really get that women walk around in an inherently dangerous world in the way that we can't comprehend, of like half the population is sort of arguably is more powerful than them, can kill them at any given
Sure.
moment. And and this is obviously a
Yeah.
huge generalization, but
Yep.
there's a sense of even something like kind of like sex.
Hmm.
For us, it's just a sort of event and enjoyable thing. For a woman, every time I have sex is potentially life changing event, there's a real sense of consequence to that.
Sure.
And I think for guys, it allows us we can walk away and we can kind of avoid responsibility a lot easier than women can in
Hmm.
general, which means that for a lot of men, and I happily admit to being one of them, you can go a very long time before actually growing up and taking on some sort of integrity and responsibility for the way you live your life and the way you show up in the world, because it's easy to avoid it.
Yeah.
You
I
can
mean, that's
kind of
kind of
get by.
the general sense, at least over here in America, where men are typically mature until they hit like 40. And then when they are, they're looked at as having something wrong with them when they don't have kids or married at
Yeah,
some point.
and
And
I would argue it's not even an age issue. I think
sure.
for a lot of men, it takes a really a sort of breakdown for
Hmm.
them to realize that, because we're aware of it. We're aware that I'm maybe not as an integrity as I could be, that like maybe I'm not behaving and maybe I'm, but
Hmm.
it's some of it's quite difficult stuff to look at, because this is like, who am I as a human being and what am I
Yeah.
avoiding, or what are my deepest fears? And so sometimes and for me it took a complete breakdown to actually realize and admit some of these truths to myself of how I was showing up in the world and maybe some of the responsibility I was avoiding. So
What
I
age
work
were
with
you at
clients who
that
are,
point?
sorry, say again.
I'm just interested. What age were you at when you had
Epiphany.
that, I guess, epiphany or aha moment?
39.
39. Okay. Yeah.
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 So,
So
I mean,
it took a
again,
while.
overgeneralization of what I meant with men, but
Yeah.
women typically, they, like you said, they mature faster when it comes to the emotional aspect of things. Men, like you said, the fact that they have that sense of freedom that they can just kind of do whatever they want with lack of
Mm,
responsibilities, it takes them
mm,
a while. Even the men that have those responsibilities, that have kids at young ages, and I
yeah.
mean, they still have a little like moment where it takes them a little while to get the aha. Um,
Yeah. And again, I don't want to, I'm
of course not.
generalizing hugely here. It's just, I
Yeah.
think it's interesting once you start noticing
Yeah.
these things to kind
Yeah.
of realize how it's structured. And I think one of the big words in my kind of initial process was integrity. It was just actually showing up from a place of like being the person you want to be, and just for yourself, for not
Hmm.
finding. And I think a lot of us, and I include women and men, but I think men maybe a bit more so, and I obviously understand men slightly better,
Yeah.
being one. Um, we don't feel safe within ourselves
Dude,
because
that's
we
crazy. I
aren't.
was just having that conversation with my wife yesterday.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
being
In
alone,
what
right?
sense?
Well, with being alone, right? So for me and my specific personality, my whatever tools, Capricorn, ESTJ personality type, me as a nutshell, I realized that I had dealt with a lifetime of not feeling safe,
Mm,
right? For me, I like to take care of other people. I will beat
mm,
myself to the ground. I will not sleep for 4 days just so I can take care of the people in front of me.
mhm.
So that way I don't have to deal with my own self, because
Yeah,
I realize I'm not safe. I don't feel safe when I'm by myself in
yeah,
some degree. Right. And
yeah.
that's super interesting that it's great. We just had this large conversation yesterday about this, my wife and I,
And
and
what have you done any sort of digging into where that comes from, or?
Yeah, I'm still trying to uncover it, honestly. Right, Jared and I, we had a good upbringing, right?
Yeah,
I don't see anything in my past that would cause traumatic events that would be like, holy crap, this is the one thing that I get
yeah,
why he's not safe now. So it's still definitely discovering what happened emotionally to me. Who knows, right? As of right now, it's kind of, I got the aha moment that, okay, now I understand why I constantly am active. I just don't rest. I will not
yeah,
stop throughout my day. This is, a lot of men probably can relate to this, or just people in general, where they just don't stop.
and that kind of manifests as taking care of others,
Oh
always
yeah,
doing extra,
working constantly, doing things like this. Just
anxiety,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Anxious all the
sort of a,
time. Oh
yeah,
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 and of course, the happy atrium was created because Jared and I, we realized we do these self care practices anyways. Let's put this into like a package of
yeah,
the aha moments for people. Like, they don't know
yeah,
because it's so overwhelming, right? We understand and we know it's overwhelming, all this self-help book and things like that. So we decided,
yeah,
hey, let's just try to give, not that we have a package, but just these are the
Yeah.
packages
Just
of
different
self-care
tools, right?
practices of what
yeah,
this could look like, right? Or a
yeah,
package of tools of all right, if you want to kind of get yourself well-rounded and in a happier place, take care of yourself with these tools, and
yeah,
you should start seeing some transformation happening when you're intentional about it, right? If you're
yeah.
here and there, just choosing different things, it may not be as good of a transformation or as quick or as an elaborate transformation as one would be if you're doing it every day. But yeah, doing the self-care practices for sure. I notice when I don't do them versus when I do. Sometimes I'm intentional with not doing these self-care practices so I can see
And
how I'm
what
reacting.
practices are those that you do? What are your sort of regular?
Typically, like Jared and I, well, not Jared and I, he's out there, but typically it'll start my day off with journaling and gratitude of some sort, because something the day prior might have got me triggered in some degree. So I
Mm,
got to wake up every day with some sort of gratitude. It's a new 24 hours. Let's get going. Let's get rocking. Let's do something substantial to help somebody in my path. So that's always my goal for each day. That's the big one. If I don't do it, I can tell a massive difference of it's just a day. It's just
yeah.
a being reactive of the day. The kids do something, so you're a little bit more short with them. Um, just starting off the day with that gratitude statement, I found just is super
And
helpful.
if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
where does the sort of anxiety tend to come up? Like, are there any
Mhm.
sort of specific situations, or what are there any kind of things of the future that you tend to worry about more than others, or
I
is
think
it
like with most people, financial things where I like to make sure with being a Capricorn, I've learned a lot about with planning for the future. I feel grounded when I plan for the future,
Mhm.
and when I don't have my future planned in some degree, I feel disarray.
Mhm.
And it could be something simple. It could be like, hey, I have a vacation going on in 2 weeks. In some degree, I got to plan for it. Otherwise, I just kind of feel like I'm spiraling internally, or I feel a
Yeah,
little off balance.
yeah,
It could be anything simple. It could be just overstimulated by the high volume of my kids.
yeah.
That is just overstimulation. But yeah,
Uh,
my.
I mean,
But
so
when I go to work, there's no anxiety. When I'm at work, I work a lot of trauma cases, um, urgent issues, and I can
yeah,
focus a lot better. It just triggers in for me.
yeah, because you're in control. I think to me, what I hear, if you don't mind me,
No,
if you want
man,
to kind of
go
go down
ahead,
this
assess
route,
it, go for it, man. Yeah,
is I mean, control's a big one for you.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's kind of maintaining that control, and I would imagine at work you're very much in your kind of what you're doing. So
yep,
you're in a domain of like this is X, I do Y, this I know what I'm dealing with. I
for
feel kind
sure.
of comfortable with it. So you have actually a sense of control that maybe in a way most of life it sort of constantly feels like you can always be something doesn't you're sort of juggling,
Yep.
you're spinning plates and you don't want anything to drop.
It's a good imagery. Yeah, absolutely. Just up there, just going woo.
Which is such a common one, and exactly as you've already pointed to, is that that's kind of comes from an inherent sense of not safety, of fear,
Yep.
which I will give you a break here. We all feel. So you're not particularly special,
I,
unfortunately.
hey, that's all
we,
right, man. I don't want to be
we
special on
all
that.
have some version of that. Yeah. But I think where it gets interesting, and this is where my work is these days, is really it's not trying to kind of maintain where you're at now. It's
Mhm.
actually getting to the base of like why the fear's there in the first place. Because I can guarantee you it's not based on a truth.
Mhm.
So the fear is a kind of creation of your own making because you think being that way in the world is the thing that kept you safe or will keep you safe. And that's because you inherently don't feel that sense of safety just as you are,
That's
which
deep.
is which is a lie.
Yeah.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
You
That's the
are.
good news is my brain, or many people's brains, you're causing your own reality or lack of
Yeah,
reality, right?
the good news is just your brain is broken. But the other
All right, listeners, you hear that? Your brain is broken.
yeah.
Get your
No, but
shit together.
so this is being human. I think that's the
Yeah.
first thing. And I think so many of us give ourselves so much we're so harsh on it, but like we all deal with some version of this. And the more I do this, the more I see it is actually we're incredibly simple beings. And this isn't even complex or psychology, it's just physics.
Mhm.
Like we as a child, and you mentioned you had a great childhood, but I can guarantee you there were some circumstances or inputs or environments that created a sense of like it was up to you to take the responsibility of kind of controlling things. It
Sure.
was because what I also hear from you is probably quite a lot of pressure on yourself. I'd imagine
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
there's quite a lot of pressure
Jared, you
on
can relate how we grew up. You remember? What is that name that you and the rest of the siblings used to
You
call?
used to call who you? Oh,
Yeah.
Snaggletooth?
No, not that, man. Come on.
That's the only one I could think of.
Come on, man.
I thought you were going to say
Oh my
Jethro for me.
God. No, dude. I mean, although that maybe had some, minor, but believe it or not, that really
What
wasn't
name?
it.
Yeah.
If I had to think of anything, Vince, I had a
Mr.
name
Perfect?
for my siblings, and Jared would know what it is. There it is. Yep.
Oh,
I mean,
Mr.
yeah,
Perfect.
there it is. It's control. And
Yeah, but
Yep.
that was
Mr.
like
Perfect,
for,
right?
I
After
was
the,
so short.
WWF wrestler, man.
It was
It
so
was such
short
a short
lived.
time,
I don't
but
remember us calling you that. Just
that's the only thing I can think of, man. Because Vince, everything that I would do, I remember my mom would always say, "Do something 100% or
yeah,
don't do it at all."
yeah. That's dude. That's in
so,
my head. Like you
so
can't believe.
already,
It's insane.
already
Yeah.
you talk about, and this is, we're so influenced. People talk about how resilient children are, and that's
Hmm.
true. But we're also much, 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 much more sensitive than
Sure.
we go out. And things affect us in ways we can't comprehend. And we're all affected. You do not escape childhood unscathed. We form our version of the world because that's where we're forming it.
Yep.
And so, as you've said, like, it absolutely zero mystery why you feel the way you do now
Yep.
when you had that narrative told you as a kid, because that's how you formed the world. And so going back to being a kid, your version, and says nothing about your parents or whether they loved you or whether they're great parents, just
Sure.
purely because you're an influential child, your version of that is how you have a large family. Did I gather
We
that?
have Jared and I. We have 3 other siblings. Yep.
And where do you fit within that?
I am the second youngest.
Okay, so down near the bottom.
Yeah.
The as a child, you had this narrative of like, if you don't do it 100%, don't do it at all. So what does that say to a kid? When the person who takes care of you, the person who you rely on literally for survival, says that to you, what is that saying to a kid?
I mean, as an adult now, it for sure says I got to do it right, and if I
Oh,
don't,
yeah,
I
it's
will get yelled
completely
at,
wrong.
or
Well,
and punishment, which is obviously
No,
wrong
but
on
the
my
100%
own
thing.
but
childhood
it
brain.
goes actually deeper than that.
Okay.
As an adult, you can kind of look at it logically, but as a young kid,
Yep.
what is the feeling there? It's not rational. But if you think of like a
You
child,
never get anything right.
it's I'm going to die.
Interesting.
Because ultimately it's like, if I need to keep my caretakers happy,
Mhm.
like my mother is the very person I rely on for life.
Sure.
Like, I can't take care of myself. I'm a child. I don't know what to fucking do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I need to keep them happy. I need to do what she says and make her maximum happy, so she loves me, so she takes care of me. I mean, this is sort of just biology more than psychology. And so invariably, the narrative you form from very young is like, I need to do it 100% right, or else I'm going to not be safe.
That's
And
deep,
so
man.
safety, so you talk about where the safety comes from. That's exactly, you don't have to overthink it more than that. It's just, it comes from, you were told, in not as many words, but basically kind of energetically, and from the words she did say, or how you were raised, or is, you are not safe unless you are perfect.
Yep.
And what do you do for the rest of your life? All you do is spend your time trying to be perfect, which manifests itself as making sure everyone else is happy, making sure you're doing maximum effort, making sure you're working as hard
And you
as
can
possible.
control everything that you can control, right?
And you control everything, because that's what else is perfection but controlling your entire environment. I need to juggle all those plates. I can't let anything drop. And now you're living in the state that you've kind of got it working to a degree, but I would suggest it's probably
What's the new lens
exhausting.
though? Like how
it is, Vince.
Going back to you, Vince, you were saying you had that moment, because I think we can kind of bring these two stories together. You had your own thing, right? Everyone kind of has their thing that they're going through. And I know you're still working on it on a daily basis, Vince. By no means are we saying like you've got it completely under control. But you had that moment. You have evolved. But I'm curious how what do you go through? Walk us back to that. You have this realization. You're still feeling pretty horrible, but like walk us through that up to today. It was like, what, 2 years ago, was it?
Yeah. So I would say, you never figure this out fully, because you're a human being, and we're inherently humans. Life comes at us, and we have narratives, and we have to form an identity to live in this world. Like the vehicle we live in this reality is some form of identity. Like you have a name and a body and a personality, and that allows me to know how to interact with you. And this is very functional stuff. So that's always sort of getting in your way a little bit. The difference is, for most of us, we believe that to be the absolute truth of who we are. So this is my name, and this is my identity, and it's my body. And now what you've done is you've inherently limited yourself to just that. And now you can only work, and especially a lot of self-helpers within this world, is like you've built, the sort of analogy is you've built this room that you live in, and you've built it out of these walls of your identity. So you have, and one of those walls is I need to be perfect. Like I need to get everything right. And there's sort of all the fixed ideas of your identity, of who you are and how you see the world and how you see yourself. Most of us live within that room, and we don't even realize we've limited ourselves. We just assume that to be the truth of our reality. This is the way the world is. Now, when someone says something to me, or if someone kind of triggers me in a way that for you, I would imagine like it is something, whether you realize it or not, comes across as actually suggesting that maybe you're not quite getting anything right, or you're letting things slip. It's probably quite confronting. It probably brings up stuff, because now you're being told that actually your identity is, you're not holding it all together.
Yep.
The power comes, the real shift, and this is a shift. This is a sort of binary thing. You either realize this or you don't, is realizing you're not constrained by those walls. The available space to live is not just that room, it's the entire world outside of that room. And you get there by realizing that the walls you built are illusionary. They're stories made up in your mind. The story being, and I'll come back to kind of my version of the story, but just following on for what we're talking about with you, is the version being that I need to be perfect and otherwise I'm not safe, is realizing that it's actually just a made up story. Now it's very real for you. It affects your life and your nervous system feels a certain way, and you behave a certain way.
And I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there as well that kind of have the same sort of along the same story as what I do. Logically, 100% I understand everything you're saying. How does an individual get emotionally and logic together?
So I'll go back to answering your question about kind of me and get to try and answer that point. I had this massive realization that fundamentally I felt like I was, and for lack of a better word, because I felt it very viscerally, like a kind of piece of shit. Like I wasn't a very good person. Like I felt, and I can trace that back to some stuff in my childhood that I kind of realized pretty quickly where it came from. Also, amazing family and really great childhood, but just there were sort of odd moments that I took on quite, I suppose, form my identity around.
Are you comfortable
really
unpacking some of those?
The sort of subconscious belief that ultimately I was.
Are you comfortable unpacking some of those experiences that you had in childhood? Yeah,
things in my childhood
that made you feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, it was I suppose as a kid was probably quite, I never liked rules. I never liked structures of things. And my dad is a very kind of analytical engineer type, and the most amazing father. Like I don't ever want to disparage him. He's an incredibly loving man, but through his own stuff, through his childhood, he grew up, he's kind of a bit less comfortable with his emotions, and there's a lot of stuff there with his mother. And so there were quite a lot of confrontations where I was a kid, where he would sort of lash out, and he had these sort of like, he had this temper that would flare up, and he would just like shout at me, and it was and he would very quickly come back, and it was always this process of like he would get angry and then be very shamed by it and sheepish and realize, but he wasn't good with dealing with his emotions, so he would sort of shout at me, and I remember moments of him saying things like, "Oh, you little shit." And I also remember being the kid that would like needle him because I knew where his weak spots were, and I found it so ridiculous that he was getting so angry about these silly things. So I very much, and this is stuff that I kind of do work in now, is like we create these realities for ourselves because inherently we're stuck in something, and then we create a reality where we get to kind of needle where we're stuck. Of like, I had this inherent feeling of sort of unworthiness that arguably, whether you call it karma from a sort of spiritual perspective or just genetics from a more scientific perspective, you come in with some sort of nature, as any parent can attest to, and I'm sure you can, like your kids have different personalities at birth.
For sure.
You come in with this stuff, and then you sort of move into a world where the world keeps showing you where you're stuck on some of this stuff. And so for me, I was stuck in this thing, had this relationship with my father that he would say things, shout at me, you little shit. As a little kid, without even realizing, took that on as a fact. Like, I'm a little shit, and I'm like manipulative, and it's kind of, I shouldn't act like
And you
this.
own that.
And so I took that on as a belief. And then I spent the rest of my life trying to prove that I wasn't a little shit, subconsciously. And partly how that manifested for me was I overcompensated. So there was a lot of false confidence, and I'm so chilled, and I'm so happy, and I'm so capable. But actually, deep down, I was deeply insecure that everyone would find out that I was just sort of this slimy, manipulative little shit trying to move around the world. And so it was part of that is you're unable to fully be yourself, because yourself is not a very nice person how you think you are.
Sure.
So you're never actually, there's always a sense of like, fuck, maybe they'll find out. And this is all deeply subconscious. I lived 39 years without seeing
Having
any of this, but it ended up coming out in relationships subconsciously, it coming out in sort of business and friendships and ways that I didn't realize I was acting. But then when I realized it, when I saw that, oh, this is all coming from a little kid who still lives within me, who desperately believes that he's a little shit, that he's not a good person. And now he needs to prove to the world that he is a good person. And partly the way I was trying to do that was through outward success, through proving how smart and capable and kind of good I was, and how chilled I was, and how everyone liked me, and all this sort of stuff. But you can never do it. So you're endlessly chasing this, kind of trying to prove yourself, because ultimately you can never do it because it doesn't exist in the first place.
Right,
because it's just a belief structure you have. And actually, the truth is you don't actually want to prove it, because the safe place is the gap. The safe place is the identity of, I need to be the person who works hard. I need to be the person who proves myself. So if you ever got there, if you ever actually proved yourself, or you achieved success, or in your case, got ultimate control, where everything was exactly, like, you wouldn't know what to do, because the safe place for you isn't being in control. The safe place is being the little kid who constantly gets to try and be in control.
Yeah,
he constantly tries to be perfect.
Definitely agree with you on that one, right? Because I believe that in certain regards I have been successful, but once you get to that success, you're absolutely right. It's an empty feeling. Because I'm not where I need to be, where I thought I need to be, and I just keep striving, or people just keep striving to get to that success point. So that's right on the right on the head, man. Nice job.
The reason being that you're not looking for success in whatever framework. Your version of success is just an arbitrary metric. You've just kind of picked some arbitrary thing of like, this is my business, or this is the amount of money, or this is how this is the house I need to live in. They're completely arbitrary things.
Right.
So you've just created a sort of mirage that you can chase, but ultimately you're not looking for success. You're looking for peace.
Right.
And the peace is achieved by realizing that you cannot get it externally. And you get there by fundamentally realizing that, okay, you right now sitting here, realizing that that feeling is not a rational feeling. It is just the fear of a little kid, of really, in very simplistic terms, I will be abandoned unless I have ultimate
X, y,
control.
Z. Yep.
Or as I am success unless I do everything 100%.
Right.
So the way you get beyond that is really getting to the root of that and going, is that true? Is it
the
true?
logic of it obviously is not, right? Emotionally, though,
So I mean, but sitting here now, like really feeling into it. I mean, if you want to try and go into this for a second, like,
man, I'm a vulnerable guy, so let's do it.
just sort of taking a breath and feeling into your body now, and just relaxing your shoulders, and just feeling into, like, first of all, really feeling that little kid and how much pressure that feels to be under, to constantly need to be perfect. And really feel that of like, that's a heavy burden that you've lived your whole life under, of like, and really feel into that little kid. I don't know what age that maybe was, but it sounds like it was kind of part of your life, probably from when you were very young, like looking at a kind of 5-year-old or 6-year-old or whatever it might be in front of you, and just like how much weight that kid was carrying, how much responsibility that he had to figure it all out. It was all up to him. And just feeling how much pressure that still keeps you under. And now realizing that, is that true? Is it true that you have to be perfect? And I would even put a little spin on that. Is it true that it's possible to be perfect? Does that even an idea of perfection is also something you've just made up? You've just created a world that you've created set things and like pointed at them like, if I do this, it'll be perfect. Yeah. You can feel it, right?
That's deep, man. That's heavy.
Yeah. but you can, it's beautiful, right? It's just realizing that's what you're carrying all the time. Like you're still carrying that.
I am.
And yeah. And
Whew.
so the first stage is just having some compassion. This isn't about getting beyond that or telling them that little kid it's wrong. It's just feeling like, yeah, I don't need to do that anymore. Like I don't need to carry that. I've got you. And including all of it. Like, yeah, there's this need to be perfect. It's never going to go anywhere. The difference is it's not the limit of who you are. Yeah. Yeah, it's
That's
great, man. Thank you. I really appreciate you going there. That's beautiful.
that was good. That was yeah, that's some work to do, Vince.
So now, no, let's continue. So now I want you to sit there and I want you to feel into what if you didn't have to have it all under control? Just play with this for a moment.
God, that'd be
This is
amazing.
tricky. You've lived decades in one sort of nervous system pattern, but like, what if you could just chill? What if you could lay it down and just like show up without needing to prove anything, without needing to control anything? Like, how does that feel?
I'd like to go off to a forest and never come back.
Right? Right?
That's that's
There's some more,
that's what it would be great, man.
but there's some more space there, right?
There is.
Like,
There's a
like
lot
there's
more.
some more possibility.
There
So
is.
right now, this is the irony, is right now you're building a life that you want to live.
Yep.
And you think that need to control it and that pressure you're putting on yourself is the best route to get there. And what I'm going to suggest to you is it's the thing limiting you from getting to that life you want to live. It's actually a weight you're carrying. It's not the fuel pushing you there because you're running away from a sense of not being safe.
That's huge.
But you're not safe. You are right now in your body, taking a breath, just feeling into it. You are a being sitting here with the capacity to love, with obviously an amazing family, with life pretty good.
It is.
And irrelevant of all of that, take away all the external stuff, just physically in yourself, sitting here, closing your eyes, just taking a breath. And if you play with me for another 20 seconds or so,
Yeah.
what I want you to do is just start getting rid of everything that you think is you. So just play a game of just coming back. Just imagine you kind of chop off your legs and just see if there's still a sense of you there. And now imagine getting rid of your arms and kind of work through your body. And I want you to get to a point where you've sort of you've amputated your whole body and you're just sitting there. Are you still there?
I am.
Is there still a sense of you, whatever that is? Like, has that made you any less? And
No.
now what I want you to come back even further, just get rid of your senses, get rid of taste and hearing and smell. And like, even without that, is there a you? Is there a being in there that is still you? Right? Still there. You can still sense it. Nothing's changed. It's literally identical from when you had a full body and all the stimulation of your senses to right now you have no taste, you have no touch, you have no senses, you have no body. And now this gets a bit trickier. I want you to move some of your identity, get rid of your name, get rid of any of your opinions or views of the world or tastes or preferences, and change them. If getting rid of them is too far, change them. If you like chocolate, pretend you like vanilla, like just sort of play with shifting that around and see. What I want you to notice is that awareness that you hasn't changed at all. Can you sense that? It's still there. The tastes, the preferences, the opinions, the thoughts, they're all just coming and going. They're all just sort of flowing through the space. And the space that holds it is you. And come back to that. Just let go of all of that stuff and come back to it. Just that awareness that is holding space for all of those things that if they disappeared tomorrow, you would still be there. And if you can just take like a nice breath there, just feel into that. And what I want you to notice, just rounding this off, I want you to notice how safe that space feels. There's no need to go anywhere. There's no need to do anything. There's no achievement that can happen. There is nothing you need because you're there. It's just you. It's timeless. There's an awareness there that is just watching all this chaos of your personality and your life and world and everything unfold around it. But it's just steady. It's this calm space. And what I want you to really feel into is how much calmer and safer you feel when you come back to that sense. beyond all the turmoil of the thoughts and the emotions and the opinions and the pressures and all the stuff you hold on to. And just that sense of safety, of like deep safety, of safety beyond anything in the external world. Can you feel that?
It's a blissful state.
Right? I mean, bliss is literally the word. Yeah. So coming back to that, when I say you're never not safe, it's because the true you is that. The rest of you comes and goes and changes. Your body is completely different to what it was when you're a 6-year-old. Your opinions
Sure.
definitely are. Your thoughts definitely are. There's a constant awareness that witnesses all of that. And the safety that we talk about is not finding safety in the physical world. That comes and goes. Things will be fine one moment and then you'll get mugged and you have to deal with that. Or like you'll
Right.
be at home sitting in front of the fireplace and you'll feel completely content. And other times there'll be stuff to worry about. Life changes and it's an
Sure.
inherent roller coaster. If you're attaching your sense of safety to that, you're always going to be suffering in some sense.
Yeah, it's
But
never, there's no calm ever.
no,
Yeah.
the trick is realizing the calm's always there, just watching all the stuff on the surface. And the image I like to play with is the idea of the ocean, of like the sort of surface is the weather affects it. So there's just these external circumstances affect how the ocean moves and kind of what it does. And some days it's calm and crazy. Some days it's calm and beautiful and the sun's out and it's glassy. And some days it's just chaos and stormy. And most of us live on that surface and we're at complete whim of the weather. And what we do is we're trying to control the weather. We're
Yep.
trying to control all the external circumstances and everyone else and everything, but we can't. We're trying to control life. And partly why we suffer so much as humans is that because we don't inherently feel safe, we have this desperate need to control things around us, but we're trying to control an inherently chaotic thing, which is life. We have no idea what tomorrow's going to bring or the next
Sure.
moment's going to bring.
Or the next moment. Yeah. When you got these little kids, man.
Yeah, it's completely. I mean, as kids, you'll
Yeah.
be able to attest to this. You have no idea what's going to happen.
No.
The trick is realizing you're not just the surface of the ocean. Is actually most of you is the depth below that. And if you come off the surface and into the depth, that's just always still and calm. Underneath the kind of chaos of the surface, there's that deep, timeless being. And coming back to that, when you realize that little kid, that little version of pressure on yourself is just a story you've created because you felt a need to be safe. But actually, you can't not be safe. You're always there. And so when those impulses come up, rather than kind of diving into them, thinking you can solve for safety by putting the pressure on yourself, by acting more, by performing more, can you just come back to like, oh no, there's that kid shouting out. And rather than like reacting, just give them a hug and go, no, we're good, man. Like, we're good. And then you take the action.
Yep.
But you're taking it from a space of like presence in what you're doing rather than this frantic running from a tiger because you think you constantly need to be running because the tiger doesn't actually exist.
It's great imagery. Yeah. Especially in the moment. Jared, you can relate to this probably as well, right? With the little kids and just being overstimulated like that, understanding when, most parents in general, they snap out at their kid because they're frustrated, they're angry, they're,
Yeah.
they haven't had time to themselves, right? And so what I hear is that little kid in you is the cause of this reaction for anybody.
Yeah, I would suggest that that those parts of us are literally stunted, or they stop at that point. It's figured out from a sort of more, I suppose, psychology point of view.
Mhm.
That little kid figures out how to be safe in the world at age 6. I need to be safe by proving that I'm not a piece of shit. I need to be safe by kind of being Mr. Perfect.
Mhm.
Like that's it. I've got it. I know how to be safe, and it's worked, right? You're safe.
Yep.
You're, from a biological point of view, like you're alive. It worked. Congrats. Like being the thing that you thought you had to be, you performed, pushed yourself hard, became Mr. Perfect, or at least aspired to be Mr. Perfect,
Sure.
and it worked. So there's no more need to figure it out.
Yep.
Great. We've solved for physical safety the way I do it, and I would say there's emotional safety in there as well because we crave belonging, which is one of the biggest imperatives, because as humans we kind of inherently feel disconnected and we feel alone, which is also an illusion. Because we are deeply part of life. We just don't
deeply
allow
connected.
us to be
Yeah, all of us
deeply
are deeply connected. Yeah.
So that, as you say, that little kid is that part of you is a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, or wherever that belief really kind of cemented in, or 10-year-old, or whatever it might be. And for some of us, it's later. We might have a sort of a breakup in high school where they told us we were ugly, and that just died. That was it. But at some point when we're young, that belief kind of it got locked into our subconscious, and then that controls you for the rest of your life. And it's just, for most of us, we don't realize that our subconscious is steering the ship. We think we're out there doing all these things and trying to achieve a successful life, when we have never actually stopped to realize that we're still living within those four walls. We're still living in quite a limited room, and what we're capable of is bound by that space in that room. Like, you can't achieve more than a certain amount because you are physically in a small space. But now when you realize that that belief is just something, that's a movie that I'm playing, it's not actually true. And I can sit and hold space for that little kid, and no, then those walls start dissolving. You realize there's so much more capacity. And what that exercise we did of what becomes available to you, and that's the space outside of that room, when I don't have to be perfect. How do I act in a situation where I don't have to prove I've got it all together? How can I
Yeah,
show up in my relationships where I don't have to necessarily constantly worry about everyone else, and I can just be me? And now suddenly the space available to you becomes infinite. And for many of us, it's quite a uncomfortable thing at first, because it's unfamiliar. We've lived in quite a tightly controlled environment for so
for
long,
sure.
and there's this very clear idea. I know how to be. I know how to be the person who tries to prove he's always right. I know how to be the person who is trying to prove to everyone what a nice guy I am, because I don't want to be a piece of shit. But who am I if I don't have to prove that? Who am I if I can just be in a conversation, not trying to be the smartest one the whole time? And this was a
Sure.
big one for me. I always tried to fucking be the smartest one. And what that
Right.
resulted in was just lecturing people, and people I was always judgmental, and people got that. And I knew I was doing it. I just didn't know how to not do it, because I
Mhm.
was so driven. And then suddenly you step out of that and go what if I just listened? Because I don't need to prove anything. Suddenly the whole dynamic changes. So it's then the process, then the work starts of constantly becoming aware of that pattern. But ultimately it comes back to, for all of us, there's one or two or three fundamental beliefs that all live
Mhm.
in the world of unworthiness and unlovability and insufficiency of some kind.
So the practice that you just performed on, I guess, myself and Jared a little bit, it may not been as impactful to you, Jared, but for me, it certainly was. How does an individual
It's like a meditation.
um, perform? I guess is it a
A
certain type of
meditation.
meditation?
Yeah.
Is it just meditation in
Yeah.
general?
Yes.
To me, when you were doing that, it was meditative, right? I think my personal thought was, I think that's something that one should do at least every day, kind of walk themselves through that process. But I'm curious what you answer Sam's question, Vince. Sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, so this is where my work sort of sits at the moment, and is really, for me, the process was one of I suppose revelation. It was like when I saw that, it was life changing. Like I had something completely shifted for me when I just realized that who I thought I
I felt it,
was
Vince.
not
Yeah,
who was
I
not
get
who I
it.
was. And the
Yeah.
biggest thing was I just realized how
Mm.
afraid I was. I saw how I had created stories because I was deeply afraid. And the first thing that shifted when I realized those stories weren't true was the fear disappeared. And so it was this binary thing of oh, I am not the personality that I thought I was. I am the space, the awareness, that being that the personality sits within.
Mhm.
And that personality is not a fixed thing. It's a very useful vehicle.
Yep.
It's like Ram Dass, who's one of my favorite
Oh yeah,
teachers,
yeah.
talks often about your sort of the person you think you are is just like your car. It's like your
You
Ford
change it
pickup
out.
truck. Like you drive around the world, and most of us
Yeah.
think we are the pickup truck.
Yeah.
And it gets dinged and battered and kind of worn,
Hmm.
and it deeply affects us, because you're like, I'm getting dinged and battered and worn, and I'm not good enough. But actually, it's just a vehicle for the world, and that's the way I see it. Is like the personality and the body and all the stuff are very useful vehicles for interacting with this reality we live in, whatever your perspective of it, whether it's kind of completely atheistic or agnostic, or whether
Mhm.
you have sort of certain spiritual beliefs. There's a truth that we can all feel into, is there is some awareness behind that. And that very brief exercise we did is obviously that sort of feeling of there's something beyond this vehicle that I live in. And if you can stop identifying with the vehicle, you get a lot more power to then be fluid with that vehicle. Your personality isn't so fixed, and your beliefs aren't so fixed, and you can start playing with that. So going back to your, because a long-winded way of getting back to your question, I think for me it was a very quick revelation in terms of what that was. And then the next step was, well, integrating that into life, because we've lived within those four walls. We've lived within the constraints of who we think we are for so long that our physically, our nervous system, our belief patterns, our kind of ways our brains operate, we get pulled back to that because that is our safe space. It's like we've lived in that cozy little room, and that's where we feel safe, even though it's not necessarily comfortable. We feel constricted. We feel like we aren't living up to our full potential. We feel maybe anxious about the future, but we know it. And inherently, we're always going to come back to what we know over the uncertainty of what's in front of us, because that's
Safety.
just, as beings who believe we're going to die, the unknown is dangerous. So then it becomes a process of like building some space from that. Of like, hey, now I realize there's this whole world outside. Can I kind of step into it and not keep being pulled back into that safe space that is actually quite limiting? And so for me, breathwork was a very powerful practice of that, because I found it around that same time, and I started using it. And what it did was it just brought all of that to a somatic sense of, it got me out of my mind. And I think we've sort of kind of gone into this too much, but really the thing where all of this is happening, all these fears, all these constraints, all these identities, are just thoughts. It's the mind. It's the logic. It's intellectual. And actually the only way to feel truth in that experience you just had now, and the example I always use is love. Like it's feeling, it's not thinking. And this is where it gets quite hard, especially with a lot of sort of A-type performance-based people that I work with. They need to figure out, they need the answer. And the irony is actually it's letting go of the need for the answer, because as long as you're searching for the exact answer for it all, you're still in the head. And you can get to a point in the same way we can kind of describe love, we can kind of explain it to someone, but you can only truly experience it through feeling the experience of love. And that is, it's something that logic can't get to, the intellect can't get to. So breath work and a lot of somatic practice, what it does is it actually, all it's doing is getting you beyond the thinking and getting you grounded in your body. And meditation is a practice of this, right? It's being aware of the thoughts flowing through and that you aren't attaching to the thoughts. And what that's doing is getting you beyond the mind. And the sort of this joke of being human, I phrase it as sort of being human is a prison break, is that we're born within this sort of prison of the mind with all these thoughts. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to solve for peace and happiness within that prison. But ultimately, the way to get out of it is to break out of prison completely. And the irony being is you were actually never in prison in the first place. You were actually the being watching the you thought you were, who was stuck in prison.
How about that for some imagery?
That can be a binary thing of just like, oh, I'm not this person who I thought I was, because all the problems, all the constraints, all the suffering, they're sufferings of our identity. They're not sufferings of the being we are. As that very brief exercise kind of hopefully you got a brief sense of it. And this is something that you can spend a whole life practicing of, like, there's bliss. There's no suffering when you come back to that. So how much can you keep finding that space? And all these practices really are not a process of solving for anything new. It's a process of surrendering the thinking, of kind of using the mind to point out the lies in that. So you use the mind back on itself of like, but is that true? Oh, it's not true. It's like, I'm very angry with my partner because she doesn't love me. And then you start questioning that. But is that true? No. You start getting to the process of like, no, it's actually just because I feel deeply unloved because my mother didn't give me enough love as a child, and I'm always going to filter for that. And it's actually, she doesn't not love me. She just got angry because of her stuff and shouted something. And that doesn't mean anything more than, so you can start using
reasoning,
the intellect to get there.
right?
But then ultimately, ultimately you want to get beyond all of that. And that is really the process of getting back into the body. And that's where all the somatic work and breath work, I find, is nothing quite as powerful as that. I mean, you could argue sort of psychedelic experiences and a lot of drugs will take you to that same place, but that's not a,
it's superficial, right?
You can only go so much with there. And it can be incredibly informative. It can open up an entirely new experience of reality, but you still ultimately come back to daily life. And so things like the breath are this constant grounding thing that you can always use. And then somatic breath work, which are kind of the longer trauma release type stuff that I work with, that can be these huge releases, because your body is able to let go of some of the stuff that's keeping you kind of in these tense states, that's driving the fears in the mind. So it's everyone has their unique kind of point they're at and the thing that works best for them. But I find that process of using the intellect, understanding it intellectually, and then coming back to, whether it's through meditation or breath work, into some somatic sense of, which is actually just ultimately beyond the thoughts of just feeling love. And that's the kind of most powerful thing. Because when you exist in that state, irrelevant of how you get there, you don't have fear anymore. You can kind of be fully present in where you're at.
I would say that, I've practiced meditation a lot, and that little exercise that I just went through for sure was the first time I've actually gotten to that emotional state. And
Amazing.
I've done it for years. And I don't know what you did.
Awesome.
I don't know I don't know what happened there, but it released something, and it was an amazing thing to go through, and all I want to do is go back. I want
Yeah.
to go back to that. So
Yeah, so
how does an
practical.
individual, because I know there's millions of people out there that are feeling the same thing, right? Because I talk to many people, and because I am a vulnerable person,
Yeah.
I talk about my own shit all the time, and it helps break down the walls of other people. And right, I tell people all the time, meditate. That's what's worked for me, but that's a different level. What you just did there, right? That's not just basic meditation. At least for me, it didn't feel that way. So how does one practically put that into their life? Is it just me thinking back, like what the exercise you did, or is there something else that I'm missing where I can take, or other people can take
Yeah,
back
that
and
was my
apply it
next
after
question, like
this?
the actual practical
No,
advice.
I mean, I think that exercise.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Vince.
Sorry,
I'm
no, no,
still,
say
yeah,
again.
basically what Sam just said, just to piggyback on it a little bit, it's this idea of, what we're talking about, and I know this is where you kind of help people specialize as well. It's the idea of, hey, you can do this practice here in your office or by yourself. That's great. But you're doing that because you want to be able to tether back to that when you're living your life, right? Going and be a nomad is not
Yeah.
really bringing much value to anybody, right? It's not really sharing love to anybody but
Yeah,
yourself, which is
yeah,
great, but that's very selfish. And
yep.
so the whole idea is try to be selfless, to share that love, and you do that by interacting with others. And to do this, we need to get out of this box that you're talking about. And that as you're talking, like that's where I'm
Yeah.
struggling right now. I'm like, all right, I go to work and I interact with
Yeah.
people that I don't, certain people that some days is fine, other days it's like, man, I want nothing to do with you, right? Or whatever. Um,
Right.
Yeah.
Or you're
yeah, and you're
triggered on something
triggered.
like that, so you can just feel
Yeah. Look, the world's.
yourself.
I think that that's part of this process is just accepting the world's always going to come at you.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of you're never going to figure it out. Just as I say, life is inherently chaotic,
Mhm.
and the future's unknown, and finding peace with that. So the the realization to go into it with is so that practice, that's a useful meditation, and then many versions of that. And the why it felt powerful is it's just we got back to the only absolute truth,
Mhm.
because everything that's outside of that awareness is some sort of relative reality based on your own perception. So each of all three of us on this call right now have some version of what's happening here that's slightly filtered based on our own selves, on
Sure.
how we're feeling in our body and our memories and our inherent fears and our stuff. But that awareness behind us, I would suggest, is probably identical for all of us. That
Mhm.
feeling of bliss, because it's beyond all the narrative that we build on top. So the first thing is a practice of actually just always being aware that your base state, and this goes back to what you talked about, kind of love and going out into the world and being selfless about it. Your base state, from the way I see the world, is unconditional love. That's your true nature for all of us.
Mhm.
It's a state of, because it's love is the state of having no lack. It's a state of not needing to
Contentment.
add anything else or to be anywhere else from where you just are in that moment. And so you experience that through these sort of reflections in the world, whether it's meeting someone and falling in love, which is the most kind of visceral experience of it, or you have it just looking at your kids. And I'm sure having a moment where you're just like, there's just perfection there. Or for
Mhm.
some of us, it's just looking at a sunset, and maybe it's a fraction of a second, but there's something beyond understanding that we feel a sense of, I don't need anything else in this fraction of a second. It's perfect.
Mhm.
So the first understanding is that that is your true nature. That is who you are. So there's nowhere to get to. And this is sort of reframing a little bit of a lot of self-help work. It's like we have a lot of idea of like doing the work
Mhm.
to get to the place.
Yep.
But by doing that, what we're saying is we're not inherently whole and perfect and safe already.
Yeah, we're
We're a
missing
little bit
something.
broken. And
Yeah.
now I need to add something.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Now I want to reframe that completely. Of like, we don't need to, the only reason you feel that is because you have a story that's based in fear. So the process is really, first of all, really, really settling in the truth of your base state is one of peace and love and bliss and freedom and joy. To me, that's all the same experience.
Yeah.
It's ultimately, it's pointing at the same thing. Now, the way you access that, or the second realization, I suppose, is anything that is not that anytime you're not in that space, it's because you have some sort of narrative that you've applied on that's filtering through that. So you're interpreting the events of the world through some sort of narrative based in fear. So what that does already is now it puts you in a position where every event in your life, it becomes a very simple question of, can I feel love and joy for this? Can I feel acceptance of what's happening, or am I resisting it? And if I'm resisting it, which changing, need to run, whatever it might be, some form of resistance, I don't like the way this is, then you can start investigating the kind of fear that's on top of that. Why do I feel this way? Rather than it just being a binary reactive thing of, I don't like this, I need it to change, this should not be the way it is. Why do I feel this way? And why can I not feel unconditional love towards this right now? And that becomes a really powerful process of everything that comes up that before might be an obstacle to your joy, it might be something to get over, might be people you don't like in your day or people that trigger you. Rather than it being something you need to control, it becomes an internal process of like, why am I being so triggered right now? And if we're honest with ourselves and we have the space and we get more practice with this, what you'll always come back to is some sort of base truth. In your case, perfection. In my case, kind of insufficiency or not being a nice human being or whatever it might be.
Sure.
And you'll always be able to trace it back there because ultimately that's the sort of prison that we're living in the first place. So the practice and going back to just the love thing at first is, in my experience, the fastest route out of that is to stop trying to feel love from external senses or external people and places and circumstances and to give it. Like, can you look at someone who's triggering you and who's screaming at you in the street or that you hate, and can I love you? Like, this is tricky stuff.
So internally saying to yourself, whatever it may be in the fraction of a second, can I love this? Can I give that unconditional love to this individual, this type of thing that's happening, to help get you back to your baseline, at least to try to work on yourself in that moment?
Because I suppose the way I see it is we're a wholeness. We are our being. That awareness is a whole space. It's a light that shines. And so what we're doing is we diminish that light, or we filter that light through these thought layers, through these fears that kind of constrict us. And what that means is then we forget that we are the light, we are the love. And we go and we try to find it out there. We're looking for light. We're looking for someone else to shine light on us. So I need to get the perfect relationship. I need to find this perfect situation so I can feel the affirmation. Sure. I can feel the love. I can feel the wholeness. What I'm trying to say is flipping that completely. Of rather than trying to find it externally, can you figure out what's between you and expressing it unconditionally? Because I promise you, it has nothing to do with outs there. It is always to do with how you're viewing the world or how you're viewing that circumstance. And it's a really powerful practice to look at everything and to go try and love it unconditionally and look at something you really struggle with. I mean, this is very, very tough stuff. I'm not at all diminishing what this is like, but it's incredibly powerful. When you could look at someone that you hate or a circumstance, can you look at someone who's wronged you in a very tangible way and understand that they only did it because of their fears and because of what their parents said to them and because they have some deep insufficiency that they're trying to find belonging and love and affirmation through this very dysfunctional behavior. Now, this is not saying you have to like hug everyone. If someone has committed to sort of something very vicious, and there's a lot of it in the world, we still lock them up. We put them away. People behave in certain ways. But that's the way we act towards and the way we live within reality is different to hating or loving someone. Yeah. I can still love you and understand why you did what you did without agreeing with what you did and without condoning it.
Or being your best friend. Like, I can still be or being a best friend. Yeah, you can just exist in a more blissful state by not being triggered by doing that.
What you just said there is actually that's a great way of describing it. Like, you don't have to like someone.
Yeah.
But you can still love them.
And you can love and
accept. And love is just the understanding that they are another being who is themselves, all they're doing is a little kid in there searching for love. And they might be expressing that by beating their partner or abusing animals or this is horrible stuff. And that does not diminish how we deal with those people. But there's a difference between doing practical things to protect people or to live or to show up as a man in the world or protect the ones you love or whatever it might be, and acting from hate, which is really just me, some sense of power that I need that is now my dysfunction. Why do I feel the need to inflict suffering? Because
Sure.
when you're coming from your truest state, when you're back to that awareness, you can't not but love. I don't need to be told what to do. I can't harm anyone else. And the big reframe is the understanding that, and the real, even if you can play with this, even if you don't necessarily believe it as a truth, can you experiment with how this feels, of feeling like you are deeply part of it, that awareness that you came back to in that meditation is the same awareness. It's the same intelligence that I have fueling me. It's the same intelligence that controls the clouds and the sun and the birds and keeps life. We live in this like miraculous ball of energy that is kind of self-modulating, and things flow and it just works. And then we're out here as human beings with these big brains thinking, no, it's up to me to control it all.
Sure.
And part of why we suffer is we feel disconnected from that. It's like, up to me. I'm alone, I'm individual, and I need to fend for myself. So now I can only feel fear. But if I can come back to a truth of, no, I'm deeply connected, and that person who might be beating a child right now, like, that's still the same intelligence. It's just being filtered through a very dysfunctional set of fears and beliefs and conditioning.
Absolutely.
So now I can stop that from happening, but I can still feel a sense of compassion to why the suffering he must be in to be doing that in the first place. I don't know if this is getting probably a bit heavy with this, but does that make sense?
This is huge, yeah, because we've had these conversations before. That it all comes back to the same, like you said, intellect of perspective of the individual. And now you went deeper, which is they all have their own journey, which I think superficially, anybody that's gone through self-help books, we've all heard of these things, right? We all are on our own journeys, but I think this definitely gives more practical, tangible outlook on the individual to help you with that perspective. I think, right? I'm going to bring into just what's happening in the world, the political issues, the wars and stuff that are happening. I mean, hypothetically, think about all of those people, had they known or had they wanted to work on themselves with this type of intellectual knowledge,
you wouldn't have that
of perspective, we wouldn't have it, right? It seems like that is the answer of the world. Is we all need to get on board, or on this ship, if you will, with
I mean,
perspectives.
the frame on that is like, if you're in love, if you're truly in love, you can't not but act a certain way. I can't, if I love you, if you, and I love you because I feel you are me in some sense. And love is the sort of absence of a relationship, rather than it's the feeling of, on some level, we're deeply connected. There's something. And if I love you, I can't hurt you. I just can't. I couldn't.
Right.
It's like me slamming a hammer into my hand. Like, I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm not, because, and I think exactly what you just said. If we could all come back to that, there wouldn't be violence and war and all this sort of stuff in the world, because we would feel inherently connected. It's the same way we deal with nature, as we see it as sort of we are separate from nature, therefore I can abuse it. But if I realize that in some level, I am that tree. And I mean, this gets, even for those who maybe don't want to take it to the sort of esoteric spiritual side, like, just from a purely practical aspect, if you just consider the only difference between you and a tree is time. Because at some point, your body will die and decay and become kind of soil, quite literally, which will then
can actually become
be
a tree
used
yourself
to germinate a plant. Like, you will quite literally become a tree. Now, that the question is, what is that awareness? What's the intelligence? What's the soul or consciousness? Where does that fit into it? But on some level right now, even if we zoom in far enough, like, we haven't found matter. It's all vibration if you go far enough in it. And the atoms and the vibration and the kind of molecules that make all of us up, that the difference between you and the microphone and the tree and the air is the same stuff. We're quite literally made up of the same building blocks. So if you look at it from, the only reason I see you as separate and we're able to interact is a matter of perspective, is that I have certain senses and we see things from a certain scale. If we all had super zoom microscopic eyes, and I could zoom into like kind of quantum particles, I wouldn't see any. This would all just be one fluid mass.
Right.
And so from a very practical perspective, we quite literally are part of all this. And even on a more sort of, on a less out there idea, like, if you just think about it, we are quite literally taking in plants and taking those plants into our bodies and digesting them and forming cells out of them.
Yep.
And then we're excreting stuff. I mean, constantly right now you're decaying. So
Yep.
skin cells are falling off and
Yep.
hair is falling off and you're breathing in air. You're in constant fluid like motion with life, with everything around you. So we are very much not disconnected. And then,
Yep.
so it's not a hard step to then take that out of like the awareness that fuels all of that is the same thing. And if you can start playing with this idea of connectedness over separation, you just naturally will move towards more love and compassion, because
I love that.
you can't not. This isn't a practice. I need to love you. I need to love you. I need to love you. It's just I feel that love. Like you could never harm your children.
Mm-hmm.
They are part of you. You could never do it physically. And I think can you start seeing the world that way? Could you start seeing every being, every plant in the same way? Because there's no reason not to, if you agree that we're all part of this sort of organism. So we've gone a long way, Jared. Sorry, I
no, dude, that's
went up on a huge tangent from practical practices. But I think to me, it's really important. The foundation of this is the core of it, because otherwise we're just dealing on superficial things.
Yeah.
So if you can come at it from sort of that level of understanding and whatever practice that needs to, as I say, things like breathwork to me are such a powerful thing, because you get to a state where there's this state in breathwork, especially long extended somatic sessions, where you get beyond the mind and you feel this incredible sense of openness and love and empathy. And people let go of a lot of these things and they realize these truths just because it's a felt sense. Mm-hmm. Now you can start integrating into your life through things like meditation and kind of shorter breath works, and then understanding. I mean, it depends. Everyone has their unique way their mind operates and their unique teachers. For me, it's I resonate a lot with Eastern philosophy and Advaita, which is non-duality. It's the idea of that kind of there's only one consciousness. Mm-hmm. But for other people, the route might be through their religion, or it might be through science, or it's you come at it from where you're at. It's just, if you can come at it from understanding of we're all part of one thing, you're not separate from that thing. Yep. A lot of those feelings of unsafety, of not belonging, start sort of dissolving. But you're like, no, I cannot not belong. I am as integral to life as the sunshine out there and the birds and the bees. I'm just part of this thing. And some of that loneliness starts dissipating. And then we go out and we act in a way that's more loving, because I'm deeply part of it. And why wouldn't I help the guy on the street? Why wouldn't I be friendly to the barista? Because we're the same thing. And suddenly your life opens up in this magical way, because you feel connected, and then you start expressing that love outwards. And the more you express it, you smile at the barista, and maybe you have a conversation where you wouldn't have, and you say, have a nice day. And he says something nice about your shirt, and then you have a smile on your face and you walk out, and that love within you opens up. And this is all kind of, you could argue this is very kind of wishy-washy stuff, but to me, it's
very
actually
practical,
powerful stuff. It's very practical stuff.
It's very practical, very basic,
and
very
express
easy.
love in the world, and it'll come back to you tenfold. And you will open up that light within you, and suddenly you start shining. The fears start diminishing. The stories, you realize that, oh, when those fears do come up, that's just the narrative of a child. I can hold him. I can love that. I can accept why it's there. I can appreciate everything he's held me for my whole life. But now I don't have to believe them, because I know I'm so much more powerful than that. I know I'm part of this all. And it starts becoming this snowball of just like, it kind of, once you have that fundamental kind of switch.
We had a previous guest a little while back, Dr. Christian.
Oh, sorry, my headphones just died. I might be switching to.
That's all right. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're on.
We'll pause. So
no, we're good.
We had a previous guest, Dr. Christian Conti, and he talks about his what's called yield theory, and one of the steps is what if, right? Kind of what you're talking about here is the, Jared, if you relate to this as well, right? Or you see where I'm going with that, where somebody runs the stoplight. What if they're in a hurry, right? What if, or if I see somebody beating the crap out of somebody else, what if something like what you're saying, the childhood trauma that they haven't figured out how to remove or break free from that fear or that abandonment. So I think all that is all practical, very basic, honestly. Like it really is. It's helped me. I've been doing this for years with it, and promoting happiness, right? That's where the happy atrium came, where it's just promoting this happiness lifestyle with very basic self-care practices, very basic, practical things to put out into the world. The trigger for me, honestly, was probably back with Robin Williams. Everyone knows him. It's so many different, memes come across, the people that are projecting the most happiness in the world understand what it feels to be the most sad.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's a lot of truth to that, where, myself included, right? Obviously, we've just established that I have some childhood things that are I want people just to be happy. I want love. I want people just to make this life that's really hard, but make it a lot easier than
Can,
what it
can
has
I
to be.
can I say something that maybe you are aware of or not? But I
Yeah.
just want to kind of maybe subtle. It's so beautiful that you want love in the world and you want everyone
Mhm.
around you to feel love. But I would
Mhm.
suggest that maybe you're
Mhm.
neglecting yourself in that process and going back to
Mhm.
some of the stuff we covered. And that might be something just worth sitting with, of like, actually, you need to be included in that love as well.
Sure.
Of like, and part of that is like loving that little kid, of like, actually, you also get to be loved and to feel peace and to feel all that. You don't have to externalize it and project it out, which is makes you obviously an amazing human being,
Sure.
but also you can't not but love everyone else when it's coming from you in the first place, and
You
just
gotta love
holding
it.
space for
Gotta
that
love
little kid as
myself.
well. Yeah,
I get that.
and it's not a physical process. It's just accepting
Yeah.
that you can't not love yourself.
I
That
get
is
that.
who you are, and coming back to that and just enjoy being you, and then you get to go and do all the things you do in the way you do them, and you'll actually do them from it'll instead of being a burden, it becomes a pleasure, because
Sure.
and it's that same feeling of like, if I walk out and smile at someone on the street and smile back, I'm like, wow, I feel more energized. I feel part
Sure.
of something. I feel it's a very subtle thing when we go out and we kind of we feel it. It's not something that I need to go out and be nice to everyone.
Right.
It's actually it's just an organic way of being.
Yeah, for
Is
sure.
that
I get that.
is that
Yeah.
just going back to you, Vince? Was that your experience? Unpacking this, right? Sam and I are going to take this, listen to this, and then
Yeah.
go and try to apply these whatever we've taken away from this to our life. Other listeners are going to do the same thing. But again, going back to that day 2 years ago, you have this realization. How are you
Yeah.
starting to apply certain principles to your life? Like what actually happened? And then how did you overcome the struggles of putting
Yeah.
yourself back in that box?
Good question. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to come at it from a slightly different way. I think what I realized is there were no struggles to overcome.
No,
And
no,
this
I
is a
get
bit
it.
of a
Go ahead.
cop out answer, but
Yeah.
I genuinely mean that, because what I realized is that's what was keeping me trapped, was
That's
trying to
exactly what you're
overcome
saying.
the struggles. I was
Yeah.
trying to fix something. And I think what I realized was, oh, there is nothing to overcome, because I'm already good. I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to. Now, that realization, as I said earlier, was a very binary thing. It was just this revelation that completely shifted the way I experienced the world.
Hmm.
What I found around that same time was a lot of kind of non-dual teachings about the nature of reality, and I started really relating to them. And people were saying things. I think what was incredible for me is I was hearing these sort of spiritual teachings and people like Ram Dass talking about the nature of the world and love and all these things, and it was talking to how I was experiencing things. So it was almost a confirmation of like, oh, this is exactly how I'm feeling it. And they put words to it. And what that allowed me to do was I sort of built a practice. And in the early stages, it was this very fragile thing, right? You have this sort of realization, but you're still getting pulled back by all the old patterning and old conditioning. And for me, what worked in the early stages was really reconfirming that felt sense of that sense of connection. And so the first part of it was loving. I mean, and
Hmm.
again, I don't want to diminish what this is, but it was going out and making a conscious practice of like looking around the world and going, why can I not love that person?
Hmm.
And opening it up myself. And I felt that formed a foundation. And then what really helped was breathwork. It was by far my most kind of consistent practice, because it just got me out of the head. It got me into my body. Meditation, I've been doing for 15 years. So that was a natural one. Journaling was huge. And a lot of the stuff was sort of investigating the thought patterns. So it was all about getting beyond the thinking of like the breath work would take me into my body. The meditation is just a process of sort of noticing those thoughts and naturally coming back to your body. And then journaling was just a process of investigating those thoughts of like, and I found there was a lot of really profound realizations about my own patterns that came about through writing, because you'd sit there, and I feel writing for me is one of the most powerful practices, because it sort of forces you to slow down. Even if you're not necessarily a natural writer, you don't like the process, what it does is it forces you to like process stuff a little more slowly, rather than just letting it run away, and you
Yeah.
have to sit
You can
with
only
it.
write so fast.
So the very practical things for me.
You can only write so fast. I
Sorry,
know
say again?
exactly what you're saying. I've been journaling for almost
Yeah,
20
exactly.
years.
Yeah, and you have to stop and consider, and it has to sort of make sense, right? You've got to structure it intellectually. So for me, those three practices were probably like the most consistent, powerful ones. And then more practical ones. Like obviously where the body is very stimulating, the thoughts are very stimulating. So just being healthy in your body and exercise and movement and all the very practical kind of eating right and all these very practical things that we all know we should do.
Mhm.
When you're in points of kind of critical suffering, they tend to go first. Like you stop exercising and maybe you start eating a bit worse. And then the feelings in the body, the sort of anxiety is partly the mind stuff, but it's also partly you're just feeling tension and maybe you have a bit of stomach ache. So I found that just being very disciplined with getting back to that. And at the beginning, it was a bit of discipline, but I think it was the discipline for the first time in my life was coming from this feeling of truth of like I was not trying to get anywhere.
Mm.
Had opened up this new way of experiencing life, and now I was sort of nurturing it. And I could feel when I meditated, I was tapping into that same sort of awareness. And then I'd come out of it, maybe I'd think about my breakup, or I'd still feel alone, and all these thoughts would come back, and I still was sad, and all the emotions were there, but there was this sense of like safety and stability that I tapped into that then all these processes kind of nurtured. And so that's why I've spent so much time in this, I suppose, when you ask the question, maybe avoiding it a little bit of going back to actually, for me, the important part first is that revelation of like, of coming back to the truth of who you are, that awareness, that love, that kind of timelessness below all the thoughts, and then being able to investigate what are the fears that are keeping me out of that space. Why do I feel anxiety about the future? It's because I'm afraid of the lack of control. It's because I'm afraid of not being safe in the future. But if I can come back to the fundamental truth of, no, I am always safe. I'm okay. Now I don't have to control the future. Suddenly the anxiety is not something I've addressed directly because I've gotten rid of the kind of cause of it in the first place. And then maybe the body's wired a certain way and you've got to kind of stretch a bit more and ease out the knots and meditate. But those become kind of mop-up operations. That becomes more like just sort of maintenance, whereas you've dealt with the core thing at the base of it.
Sure.
So I think for me, the practices, we all know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And we know they work. It's just if you're doing them as the identity that's still based in fear and believes there's somewhere to get to, they can only do so much. Whereas if you can shift your fundamental understanding of like, there is nowhere to go because I am whole, I am that light, I can't get any extra love that I'm able to express right here, then those become kind of, as I say, maintenance things. They become, you enjoy the process of meditation and exercising and breath work and all this sort of stuff. And some of them, sometimes you need them. Sometimes you really get pulled out, like acute things happen in your life or someone dies or work kind of, you get fired. These are like, they're still very stimulating. We can get pulled out of this very easy. The mind is a very powerful circus. Like there's a lot of lights and it's a very good show in there. And sometimes it's very easy to get distracted by the show. So, and none of us are immune to that, no matter how much we kind of get beyond it. The difference is there's a memory of like, oh no, this is still a show. Even if it's 1% in that moment, you can come back to that. And then you realize, okay, I'm going to feel all these emotions. Today, I'm just tired and I'm sad and I'm frustrated. That's okay. I'm going to sit with that because I know I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's nowhere to get to. And what we tend to do is when we're suffering, we tend to try and solve for the suffering with all the strategies, which is then we get back to, oh, I need to meditate and I need to write and I'm not off my routine. And then it becomes this whole process of actually just beating ourselves up more. And ultimately what we want to do is stop beating ourselves up and get back to, I'm okay.
Dude, that's
I get to
huge
do
right there, man. Repeat what you just said. If you can,
because that happens.
So just the last, like,
let me repeat it. I'll repeat it and you tell me if I
like
hit it. Because I do this all the time, right? Just for the turmoil of how my life has been. And a lot of it has been like self-inflicted with moving and stuff. But basically, you know, I have certain practices that I do to help me feel grounded. And sometimes I'm not doing as many of them, or I'm doing them not as good, right? Not as well as I used to. And so then it's like, okay, if I just need to get back to this, and then I'm just going to feel so much better, right? I'm going to feel more grounded. I'm going to feel just where in the position of where I need to be so that I can really give myself better to the world and do the things that I see in my head and the goals that I have. And really, it's more about, you know, doing the actions that align with the type of person that I'm striving to become, right? It's the idea of atomic habits, James Clear, his book. So anyway, your idea is like, listen, those things are good. They're maintenance things. But when you're feeling that insecurity or that just wildness, if I go back to what you were saying, effectively, if you can just do some kind of breath work to get you back to the realization of you don't need those things right now. First, you need to get centered with yourself and recognize that you are good, right?
Right.
All these other things just help you, and they are important because we are physical beings as
Yeah.
well as we are spiritual, right? And those two, in my personal opinion, those two come together to make the soul. But anyway, so I that's kind of what I deducted from what you said.
Yeah, I know you've nailed it. I think it's fundamentally realizing you're not looking for the practice. You're not looking for the routine. You're not looking for the perfection. You're looking for
Yeah, and you
peace.
think those things are bringing
I
peace,
like
right?
love.
Yeah,
Love's the word I use, but I substitute peace, freedom, joy, whatever the thing we're all looking for. You're
Yeah.
looking for peace, right? So breathwork, meditation, all these things are fucking throw them away. If they're not working for you, they're not means to an end. Their goal is not to become a good meditator. The goal is to be at peace, to not be reactive to the world, to not feel like there's somewhere to get to. And the problem can be, which it becomes this sort of slippery way our mind sneaks back in, is ultimately we then use the practices as another crutch because we think there's some way to get to. Well, I just need to meditate more, then I'll get there. So we're still playing the same game, which
Yeah.
ultimately is just reinforcing the problem we have in the first place, which is that idea that where we are right now is not it. There's somewhere else that's it. I'm not good enough right now. I need to get somewhere else. Oh, but I need to do the work. This is the one everyone talks about, but I need to do the work. I just need to do the work. I'm on the path, but I need to do the work, which is, I get the intention with this. And there's so much self-help, and I'm sort of diminishing this a bit. It's not entirely wrong. It's just often that framing is like, I'll be good when. What I'm saying is the powerful place is realizing I am good. There's nothing I can add to where I'm at. Now I get to play with what is. Now I get to address the emotion or sit with it or do the practice. But you're not doing the practice in order to get somewhere. And what we often do is when we beat ourselves up so much and we put so much pressure on ourselves, and maybe we're trying to perform or be Mr. Perfect, and there's so much pressure. And then I think, well, I need to now do the practices so I don't feel the anxiety that all this pressure is causing. But what are we doing? We're just putting more pressure.
I'm just doing it again. You're just adding to the hamster wheel.
We're just adding. In fact, we're making it worse.
Putting more in the pack.
Not only do I have the pressure I've already put on there by trying to be perfect, but now I'm trying to be perfect in the stuff that's trying to get me not perfect.
Yeah.
So the first step, what I'm saying in those times, is actually sometimes just fucking forget about the practices.
Stop. Yeah.
Just love yourself. Just be like, hey man, I'm good. Like, yeah, I feel like shit today or whatever. Or like, yeah, I'm a bit angry or cool. Let me sit with that. Like, and yeah, then I get to do the practice because I enjoy it. And ultimately they are functional. They are useful. And but it's a different framing. It can be subtle because you still want to do the things but you get to a place, it's like exercise. And I'm sure you have this experience of like you sort of, maybe if you haven't exercised for a while and you're feeling a bit unfit, like going for that first run or going to the gym is like, it's some real, it's tough. It's some real discipline.
I was on the
there.
stair today. I'm like, good God, man, what happened to myself?
Yeah, and you're like beating yourself up. You're like, there's a real like, fuck, just fucking do this thing.
Dude,
but suddenly, when you are fit, when you've been training for a while, or maybe you're kind of feeling fit, like it actually, you'll actually enjoy going for the run because you just feel good in your body and you know how it feels, and it's more like a pull. You're getting pulled towards the thing rather than being pushed from trying to escape the sort of thing where there's this pressure. So I suppose to answer that, what you said, repeat what I said, is really that idea of realizing when you're just putting more pressure when you're already trying to escape the pressure you're under. And the first step is to surrender and just find some compassion for yourself. Just allow it all. Yeah, I'm feeling a lot of cool.
So
and
there's
then
no
you can do the
practice, no nothing, right? So for the people out there that are like, all right, Vince, I got it, man. All right, I got to get to the realization of this mindset. What's the practice? How do I get to this realization? I know there's going to be people out there wondering,
my mind's still going there.
Right? Those type A's. I mean, Jared and I are very type A, right? So I know there's millions of other type A people out there that are feeling this.
I actually have, I mean, I use the phrase type A as well. And a lot of people I work with on that bucket. Yeah. I actually don't think there's such a thing as type A. To me, it's just more fear-based. It's people who are it's more performance-based because they're trying to compensate for some sort of insufficiency. So it's not necessarily, I think the type A kind of, it gives us a little bit of, it removes a bit of our power because it's like, well, I'm just that sort of person. Now, I'm not saying that behavior doesn't happen that way. I'm not saying
that's a shift in perspective there,
I think it limits us in a way. And what I'm trying to encourage is like, actually, there's so much more possibility and availability to what you can be or how you can show up. It's just the type A persona comes out because you're trying to compensate and because of all that self-pressure, which for you guys, again, like it's not even this doesn't require high level psychology to when you were literally told that as kids. Like that was
Yeah.
the input, and now
Yeah.
you're like wind up dolls. Like this is how you need to be, and then you go off and the physics plays itself out
Phew.
until you get to a point of realizing like, oh, I don't need to do that. And I think that's what I'd say that the most powerful thing for you personally, if you're talking about practices,
Yeah.
is really just as a mantra, like what if I don't need to be perfect? Like what if I don't need to? Let me just experiment with that. It's going to feel uncomfortable because you're so wired that way, but like what if I don't have to get this right? What if it's
I
not
just
up to
wonder, what does
me
that
to hold
look
it all
like
together?
though?
What if I can just have faith that
Oh,
life is
man, I
Like
was
okay?
just
Vince, what
thinking
is
that,
like,
Jared.
what
Get
is
out
it
of my
like?
head.
What does it look like? Like, like you're at work and you've got a certain thing you have to do, and you're like, the old me
Yeah.
could get
Yeah.
this done well because the old me wanted it to be done perfect. If it's not, if you're not doing it 100%, don't do it at all, right? So the old me is like, get it done well. If I take what you're saying right now, and
Yeah.
anyway, I take what you're saying right now, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's good. It's good enough. Like, and I know that's not what you're saying. You're
Well,
not saying
I
that.
don't think.
You're not saying just
Yeah.
like piss it all away and don't worry about anything. You're saying
Yeah, just go sit on the beach
no,
and smoke
yeah.
weed, and you'll be good. Yeah.
You're basically saying, hey, go back to that same thing. Like, just remove the pressure of, okay, I'm gonna do my best and still show up, but that feeling of like self-worth of like the type A. To your point, we're constantly trying to compensate for things. Yeah, go ahead.
So no, I
Yeah.
get exactly where you're coming up, and this is actually the crux.
You got a
of
finance.
everything
I got a
do, and
finance
it's why I sort of
background. Listen, man, I
fall.
understand. I got my degree in finance as well. All right, like
Yeah. So here's my question: Have you been in love? Are you? Maybe you are in love.
yes, yeah, yes, absolutely.
Heck yeah. Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
know the feeling of being in love,
Yep.
like love with a person of like just fucking magical shit, like met it, and it's just the fucking
yeah.
butterflies are
Yes.
flying, and right in that moment, did you want to half-ass anything?
Not at all.
No.
That feeling.
Nope.
Nah, you wanted to, that was the
No.
most curious, creative,
The
excited.
most alive,
you'll ever
pure
be.
intelligence, I
Purest,
say, is flowing,
creative.
right? Just pureness is flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
wanted to fucking do the very best you could. The difference was you weren't trying to, you were just doing it the state came first. You were feeling, and maybe even now you can go back and even me talking about it, like I can feel the fucking tingling in my body. There's excitement in it because you're getting into the state. So the performance part of what I do is exactly that. Like when you are in a state of surrender to what is and not needing it to be anything, you're fully present in where you're at, which is ironically the highest you can perform. You will do that task to the best of your ability because you just can't not. You're fucking going to do it. And so half-assing is still in the framework of, did we lose him?
I don't know where you went. Yeah. What the heck? Right in the cliffhanger,
Yeah.
man.
I was there.
You were right there. Jared, where'd you go, man?
He's done. He's had enough.
He's like, I'm tapped out.
Yeah.
Dang, dude, you were right there.
Yeah, I mean, I can continue, but I hope you get what I'm saying. It's like,
Of course. Yeah.
So to Jared's point of, oh, there he is back. Well, wait a second.
Go ahead. You were gonna say, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
He had enough.
It was too much for him. He had to go off.
Down for some reason. Anyway, I apologize.
Yeah, to sort of round that thought off is exactly that, of like when you actually let go of the attachment to the outcome, because when you're on that, there's so much pressure on the future. You're not actually present in where you're at because there's so many other fears. Just your mental space is being taken up by a whole bunch of what ifs, and it's all based on your sufficiency or insufficiency as a being. You're trying to prove something through that. If you can let go of that attachment to what it needs to be, you can actually just do the thing and you'll inherently do it well. You'll do it well because you know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, then like you can only do it to the maximum of your ability. Like, and I think that's the sort of hard thing to grasp sometimes, is actually surrendering puts you in the most powerful position because you're actually, and it's what they call a flow state. It's, you're not thinking of where it's going. You're just in what it is. And so yeah, does that answer your question?
It does. Obviously, I'm going to think about this some more, but as you're saying it, it does make sense because I'm just thinking about doing a task, right? When you're doing a task at work, whatever task you're doing, I think back, I'm like, I'm doing whatever thing, right? And you're saying put the energy on just doing the thing. and don't put the energy on doing the thing while almost simultaneously
Well,
thinking about, am I doing this thing well? Because a lot of times that's what's happening.
well, it's a level below that, I would say. It's
Mm-hmm.
not even doing the thing, it's the motivation for doing the thing. Because what you're talking about and what we're going with here is your motivation in doing that thing is some sort of compensation for, and I kind of keep coming back to this idea, but I really think it is the key to everything, is some sort of compensation for some sort of fear.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to prove
Yeah,
yourself, or you're
that's what it
trying
is.
to not get shat on, or you're trying to show that you're
Mhm.
smart enough, or you're trying to make your
All of
coworkers
the above.
proud, or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Yeah.
We all have this.
All of the
This
above.
is
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, this is just human. Now, that's all very noble stuff. It's just, if you're filtering for that, you're not actually doing the thing to the best of your ability. Can you let go of that and just go like, it's fine. I can do it. I don't need it to be anything or to prove anything. I am whole. I am good no matter how I do this. This is just a task I'm doing, and then I'll do the next task. And tomorrow I'll do the next task. In 10 years, I won't even remember this task. It's just a thing you're doing. It's not a thing that has meaning about who you are, because you're not trying to prove how great you are through doing the thing, because you already know you're whole. And coming back to it, as I say, where we've come back the whole time, is that idea of love and wholeness being that sense of light in the first place. When you're in that state, which to me is the state of being in love, is wholeness there, you don't need to prove anything with the task. So you're doing it from a much purer state. So
I
it's
get
not
that.
even focusing on the task. It's actually focusing on the motivations for the task. And I
Hmm.
think that's where we get lost, is we all have some version of like sitting here on this podcast, I could be like thinking about, fuck, I need everyone to like me, and I need to come across a certain way, and I need to look good. And what
Hmm.
if this? And it's like, maybe I'll get more work, and then my money, and I've got like, I can go off into infinity of how this
Sure.
will affect my children's future and college fund, or like,
Hmm.
or I can just be here and really enjoy a conversation. And one of those is going to come across more naturally. And if I don't, if I just have faith that life is good, it inherently has my back, because as we've gone back to before, we are part of this dynamic thing.
Yep.
We're not separate to it. It keeps the sun shining and the wind blowing and the birds flying. Like, why wouldn't it hold us? And if I feel safe within that, and that sense of like deep presence of who I am, then I can just be present in the thing I'm doing. I don't need to add to my worth through doing the thing. And
I
that
love that.
reframes it completely, because the minute you're in that framework, you're already in some sort of fear, which is going to cause you to limit. You think of it in the framework of an athlete, of like someone sort of taking a field goal or something. Like, I can be thinking about my whole career and everything that's going wrong. And if I fuck this up and we drop from the team and whatever else, I'm going to probably do worse than if I'm just right here and I let my body do what it knows how to do, because it's done it millions of times before, and because I have the genetic ability to it.
Hmm.
One of those is going to be high performance, one of them is not. And ironically, the one that's high performance is the one of complete surrender to the moment, rather than it all the narratives. And
Man,
again,
it's crazy how the brain works like that, right? Like,
what again, to round this off finally, and I'll stop talking, is understanding that all of that is the difference between the mind. This is where all the fear is. This is where all the future is. This is where all anxiety is. And just coming back to the body, of just taking a breath and just doing what you do. Like, whatever you do at work, you've done before. You're doing that work for a reason. You're showing, you know how to do it.
Mhm.
Just have faith you know how to do it. You don't have to overthink it more than that. Now, the brain's a very useful tool, and obviously you need to analyze and do things and decide things. But that's very different to being in the brain as the motivation, because all the thought is, again, we're in this framework of fear. All the fears
Wow.
up here. What about the moments you don't what?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So as a practical, I guess, real life, Jared, what you're saying is like in finance, you got taught all these finance skills. Now you got a brand new job from a bank, and now you're in your cubicle. What the fuck? What do I do? Is what you're saying.
Yeah. No, but my point is, what Janice wants is going to come
Sweet Janice.
better. from you doing it properly, from you doing it to the fullest of your ability. Here's the ultimate truth. What's that? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're fully present in where you are, and look, I'm not again diminishing how our brains are very powerful and our patterns are very powerful, our nervous systems are things. This isn't, I'm not saying you just, oh, I'm going to be deeply in love with this task. I'm
Right.
not saying that. I'm just saying the optimal state is one where you can be detached from the outcomes and just focus on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is when you're going to perform best. So when you say, if you're new at it, you can only perform up to the ability of your knowledge.
Yeah.
That you're not going to perform better by putting pressure and stress on yourself. There's going to be inherent pressure, and there's a very big difference between acute pressures and in the moment. If you're taking a sort of World Cup penalty kick, there is pressure. Like
Right.
you're going to feel it. It's just unavoidable. And that might kind of drive some sort of performance because it's an acute thing of like, maybe a better example is if you're getting mugged, like you're going to react in the way you react. I would argue that you don't stop and
hey
think
man,
about
I love you. Thank you for this.
Yeah,
Like,
you're gonna fight back, or
Yeah.
you're gonna run, or whatever it is. We all have our sort of default.
Yeah.
Or you're like, the adrenaline's gonna kick in, your brain's gonna do what it's gonna do. That's very different to walking around constantly looking at people on the street with the pressure of how do they see me.
Right.
So the one is an acute form of it, the other sort of a chronic form of living your life. And I would say with tasks, if you're new to something, you can only perform at the level you can perform. You only know what you know.
Yep.
Like you can't, there's nothing you can do to perform, to know more than you know. So you will have some sort of kind of pressure and this functional, maybe some adrenaline on day one. That's just part of being human. But that's different to constantly grinding away in a task where you think that you need to prove yourself and that you need to do more than you're capable of doing, because that's only going to limit you.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's coming back to like taking a deep breath. I'm here for a reason. I'm hired for a reason. Maybe I con my way in, but I'm intelligent and capable. And then some level, I know what I'm doing. And if I don't know what I'm doing, I can ask. And and it actually will probably make you a better teammate and a better kind of worker anyway, because he's not afraid of asking. He's not trying to prove anything. He's not trying to so it opens you up. There's no fear around what's happening, and you get to show up in a way that, what will they think about me if I ask for help, as opposed to like, no, I'm going to ask because I'm part of this whole thing and I don't feel like I need to prove anything more than that. And the performance will always be better from that state of openness.
Do you have you just said it right there. So you take a deep breath in those moments of that struggle, distress. Do you have a mantra that you say to yourself? Like what you just basically said? Is that your mantra?
Not mantra. I use the breath a lot more than mantra. And I think
like internal mantra, are you yourself, are you just taking a deep breath and that practice gets you back to your baseline?
Yeah, a lot of this is sort of nervous system stuff where the kind of anxiety, which maybe is in the body, then kind of feeds the mind, and the mind creates stories, and the stories then feed back in the body. You create this sort of loop that we all experience of, right? Like you walk into a party and what if they don't like me? And then you feel a bit tense, and then you act a certain way where people maybe avoid you, and then you're like, oh, they don't like me, and then you feel more anxious, and it's sort of all then work the same thing.
Yeah.
So to me, personally, the most useful thing is the breath, just because it's always available and it's such a powerful thing to regulate the nervous system. So this is where a lot of very kind of simple practices, I mean, just literally,
and it's free,
deep breath. Yeah. Just can literally just down regulate a fraction of a second, or you could do kind of a few deep breaths, or very active breathing can be very helpful, where anything with an extended exhale will slow the heart rate. So some of the stuff is biology, it's just sort of physical. But I find for me personally, if I'm in moments of like, I need to do something, or I'm feeling a bit anxious, or I'm feeling a bit out of it, or I'm procrastinating, just breath more than self-talk.
I love that.
Because I mean, that unconditional love, I don't want to let the semantics get in the way. It's just a deep feeling of its presence.
I get that.
It's a feeling of being, it's in your body, it's here, it's not needing to be anywhere else. And then the more you can come back to that, the breath is a very powerful route. And I mean, we'll all experience this of when you are tense, when you are in your head, your breath changes, you're more in your chest, you blocked off. So it becomes a sort of feedback loop where not only does the mind create stuff in the body, but then the body feeds it back to the mind, and you're just sort of stuck in this. And the breath is a very powerful just thing to break that of like we don't consciously breathe much during the day. A lot of us are just always here.
Yeah,
We're
we
in our
don't.
head and we're running around. Just like a useful practice is like just a few times a day, just stop and take a deep breath. Like that alone can be transformative for some people because we never do it.
Yeah.
Of just like get back into the body and do like
Oh yeah.
shoulders and that.
I
Yeah.
catch
And so
myself doing that almost involuntary. Like my body will just
yeah,
I'm like, what the heck did I
yeah,
just do? I guess my
yeah.
my involuntary nervous system just needs that recentering. I teach
And
that
what you
during my CPR classes actually, which is
what it makes you aware is
mhm,
just how tense you are when you
yeah,
take that breath and you're like, oh shit, I've been up here for
shit,
like the whole day. Like,
yeah.
oh god. So it's a good like, yeah.
Where did you learn? I know we're getting close to our time here, but where did you learn all of these things? So 2 years ago, you had your traumatic event. Have you only
Yeah.
been teaching and practicing and helping people out in the last 2 years? Is that where all this just has come from, or
Yeah,
were you
it's been
dabbling
a
in it
very
before?
organic it's been a very sort of organic process. I started off obviously with my own process and it was just so transformative for me. I started working with friends and the first thing I really started with was breathwork.
Mm,
It was such a like direct vehicle to we didn't have to get into all the understanding. It was just people I saw people have that experience the way I did of just like it just shifted things in that moment. The problem is if you don't integrate the mindset stuff and understanding, then life just comes back in and you go back to your old patterns. But so the combination is really powerful. But breathwork was the first thing, and I started working with sort of friends and started doing classes, and I started doing bigger and bigger groups,
mm,
and that led just naturally to working with people more one on one and integrating some of the stuff. And as I've sort of progressed the process, what I think has been really beautiful for me is really the work I do now is also my process. So the more I work with people, the more it clarifies how I kind of describe it, and the more how I understand it, and it's
yeah,
become this really beautiful loop. And
I think
I
we're both
find
on
like
the
I
same boat
feel
with that.
so incredibly lucky because really what I'm doing and getting paid to do
Mhm.
and hopefully providing some assistance to other people is actually I'm getting as much out of it because in a call with a client, the way I'm forced to formulate this stuff and kind of figure it out and listen to where they're stuck and maybe where it's not landing, it makes me forced to kind of investigate my process. So it's this constant evolution, which is really nice. So yeah, it's been a sort of organic process of really my own process to breath work to class breath work to working one-on-one with people. Now it's a combination of things. But
Hmm.
what I really love is actually talking to people and like kind of investigating it. And it's,
And diving deep
yeah,
into them, huh?
yeah, I could, and my sort of, my friends joke that a lot of my conversations now become therapy sessions, which I'm
Yeah.
also trying to get maybe less more that way. Not always the great on a date, but yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, I really love this work, and I'd be doing it whether there was money involved or not. Because, as
Mhm.
I say, so much of it is like just keep it into my own process and kind of keep sort of surrendering into this. I think ideal scenario is really growing this. I'm building out a kind of more specific breathwork practice. So that's a large part of it. So it's a bit of a kind of combination of things of like taking people through this process of getting into that state of just love and getting kind of beyond some of the stuff through
Mm,
a kind of extended breath work. So that's part of it. And I'm starting to teach that and kind of take that out into the world. And then the other half of it is really the coaching side. So I think the ideal process is working probably long term more in the high performance world with sort of people that I want to work with, and then building out a lot of group stuff. I'm
mm.
working with sort of group coaching at the moment, and that's a sort of structure of both what we've talked about, the mindset stuff, and some of this revelation sort of understanding, and then the somatic side of like actually embodying that and the practices to keep that, as we've talked about a little bit of like now, kind of how do you nurture that experience in the body and that feeling of life. So
Mm.
it's a constant evolution. It's changing constantly, but
Yeah.
ultimately the goal is the same of taking people from sort of not realizing they're stuck in some sort of narrative to understanding that narrative and ultimately then kind of letting go of it so they can open up to that experience of really possibility of not being limited by what they think they believe.
It's great work, man. I mean, it's what you're doing is amazing. I mean, there's so many different breathwork facilitators out there, right?
Yeah.
Just the self help,
Yeah. It's a fast growing. Yeah.
it's
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 every
it's
day.
huge. Like, and it's so They are, yeah.
Yeah.
So how? One last thing. So did you go to a schooling? Did you do something online? Did you meet with Ram Dass? Not that you would have, but like, or someone like him. Like,
I
how
would
did
love
you
to. I
get
mean,
into this,
he's
man?
he's probably been the most transformative person in my life. He died a few years back,
Right, right,
unfortunately.
yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of learning on my own. I've
Hmm.
found various teachers that I really relate to. So there've been some of them more in the sort of modern psychology sense, some of them more on the sort of philosophical, spiritual side.
Hmm.
But so I'm constantly pulling from new things. But ultimately, it all goes back to that same kind of. There's always a base truth of just this is one consciousness experiencing itself in multiple ways, and
I love it.
anything that's not that is a narrative that we've formed to try and keep ourselves safe. And if you kind of grasp that, then it's just picking at the unique spot you're at.
Mm.
But I did, yeah. I studied the breath work under a teacher who's based in the US,
Hmm.
and that was largely about kind of the base level of just coaching people and really more than anything the kind of safety aspects of like how to deal with people. I have people once in a while who really have stuff they're going through, and it's sort of knowing how to hold space for that and
Mm.
deal with them, and obviously making sure everyone's safe and cared for. And then a lot of it's just been an experience, taking that out into the world and actually working with people one on one. And I'm constantly working with sort of coaches myself and people who are more experienced and teachers that I value what they do. So I'm taking bits from a lot of
You're a
places.
constant
From
student, which is awesome. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and again, as I say, it's my practice as well. I'm
Hmm.
constantly learning new things, and I'm constantly being kind of realizing where I'm still a little bit stuck, and even
Sure.
in the early stage of this, realizing that like I had this like profound knowledge, and I wanted to go, and I was like, no, I need to help everyone, and then I realized quite quickly that actually I was just repeating the same thing, where I was trying to desperately be the smartest guy and help everyone
Ah,
else.
look at
And then
that.
it's like
Wow.
so that was I just keep catching things like that, right? I'm still doing the same thing. I've just cloaked it in this like altruistic thing now. So it's you're never quite there. Just when you think you've evolved, you're like, oh no, I'm still doing it. Like, so it's you mean from a sort of business side or from the actual yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think interestingly, when I started, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do it as a career. I definitely in the early stages, like I don't want to be like a breathwork teacher and just
Mm.
do classes like a. Um, but I think once I just surrendered to doing it, it sort of started happening quite organically. But so what it was initially was a lot of classes.
Mm.
I started teaching a lot of group classes, and that led to just people reaching out and then working and word of so a lot of word of mouth at the beginning. And then now, as I've developed a bit more, and my kind of messaging is probably getting a bit clearer, and social media is obviously the big one. Instagram's kind of where a lot of people find me online. So it's right now it's a mix of kind of word of mouth and the group classes I do, bringing people in and working with them from that, and then social media. And ultimately, it's the sort of online world, and then doing things like this I'm doing more of, and working with kind of retreats and those sort of things. So you kind of as a constant expansion, just reaching out. But it's always I'm always sort of testing new things, and depending where I want to spend my time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. I've never actually, The Untethered Soul is one of those books that everyone talks about forever. I've never actually read it. I read one of his other books. I think it was called The Surrender Experiment, which was about his sort of life. But I need to read The Untethered Soul. It shows up so often. Yeah.
Uh,
No, no.
in this
I'm,
box.
I'm honored to be put in that box. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's such a powerful thing of just allowing it, of just like, and I mean, the word that I think I always go back to is just surrender. It's like, can I be okay with, and I think that's a sort of framework that I work with people on. It's like, really, in any moment, there's three levels of being with it. It's resisting it, which is where most of us live most of the time. Is like, I don't want this thing to be happening, and I don't like it, and whatever else, and I don't like it.
Yep.
And then there's accepting, which is already, you're in a very small minority if you can just like accept it. Like, okay, this thing's happening. I don't like it, but it's okay. Like, I can't control it. And you get to decide, do I walk away or do I deal with it? Do I just whatever? But it's accepting that it is happening. And then the really powerful place is when you can love it, when you can look at it and go, this moment is, I'm only in resistance to it because it's trying to show me something. And really, it's going back to that framework of like, in some way, I'm unable to love this. Why am I unable to love this? This is life giving me a beautiful signpost of like, this is something you need to work on. And in that case, the thing goes from something you're resisting and want to get over, and it's a block, and I need to get beyond this, to like, oh, thank you for showing this to me. Or thank you for presenting this. Or thank you, in my case, my relationship, as painful as the ending was and as deep as the heartbreak was, like, I have this deep sense of gratitude because it profoundly changed my life and who I was and how I see myself. And so even though there's pain and so much nostalgia and heartbreak there, I still can love the experience from a sense of gratitude. And I think that's a really useful framework of kind of what you're talking about, is like, are you in resistance? Can you at least accept it? And can you go a step further to just being grateful for whatever you're feeling or whatever you're going through, and saying that, flipping it as it's something that's trying to teach you something, for your freedom, for you to get free, rather than something that's in the way of you being happy. And that becomes a really, really nice framework to play with.
I think that's a fantastic thing to end on right there. Yeah, that literally just summed everything up, Vince. Oh man.
No, I'm based in New York.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, yeah. Where are you guys?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Oh, very close.
Yeah, we're only about an hour and a half. I live up in the Allentown, Lehigh Valley area. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I sold it a while back, but we used to do motorbike trips. So I did quite a
Down
lot of
my way,
Pennsylvania
or
back then.
into Pennsylvania just in general?
We actually did a lot of Pennsylvania. We did a few. We went through northern Pennsylvania once. There was some like,
The Poconos?
damn, that yeah, no, but it wasn't even the Poconos. It was like,
Even way
it
further.
was some like, it was like straight out of the movies, like kind of Hills of Eyes kind of vibe. There was some interesting characters up there.
We're thinking Scranton then.
Yeah, we were like, we ended up at this campsite where like the whole town was doing this like rattlesnake roundup, where everyone came together once a year to catch rattlesnakes.
What?
Yeah, it was some weird stuff up there. We met some interesting characters. 13 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
I would
Yeah.
imagine.
Originally. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Dude, we'll have to link up then sometime, man. What
Yeah.
the heck?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you ever get this
Jeez.
way, let me know. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, I flew out of LaGuardia like 4 months ago, man. That was like one of the worst airports. I mean, it was easy to get to, but I mean, on the way back, yeah, I would hope. But yeah, LaGuardia, man, that was my only time flying out of New York. I've never flown.
Right. Oh no, the rest are worse.
Man, it's
LaGuardia is the best of the bunch right now.
Oh, it is the best.
Like, yeah, JFK is horrendous. Newark is a spiritual experience. Like, if you want to evolve spiritually, go spend some time in Newark.
Man, you got to do some self-care practices as you're driving, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. New York, I like New York's like an abusive relationship. Like, you're tied to it and you love it, but it just kicks the shit out of you constantly, and you don't know why you love it, but. Yeah. Yeah.
Phew.
Yeah. No, it does. And you're grateful for it. You're like, the trash, New York. I love New York. And like, yeah. 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 No, it's a beautiful city. I mean, the time, and I think at certain times it's the best place to be. At other times, it will destroy you, depending where you're at. But I find where I'm at the moment, I find it I just see so much life.
Mm,
It's like talking about that experience of sort of being connected and everything, the same consciousness. I just see that in New York. Out of every crack, there's like this
mm.
kind of consciousness expressing itself in just craziest possible ways. It's really having an experimental time out here. Like, I mean, I travel a fair amount for work and both just general. I used to have a place upstate for a few years. So we had a piece of land up like off grid, built some cabins up there. So
Nice,
went up there every weekend. My friend, had it with a friend and I sold my share to him. So he still owns it. So
nice.
that's sort of, yeah, upstate's really beautiful and pretty accessible as well. It's actually,
Hmm.
um, yeah, so get out. And as I say, I used to do a lot of road trips, used to ride motorbikes and get away every weekend and go camping. So like, um, yeah, it's available. I mean, I would, yeah, but I agree with you. If you're here too long, the nervous system starts getting a little tweaky.
A little
Yeah,
tweaky.
and you don't notice it till you leave, and then you're like, oh shit, I can breathe again. It's
Damn.
yeah.
Well, Vince, where can our listeners find your platform and stuff, man? Like, how do they find your work? How do they
Yeah, honestly, Instagram is
the best?
yeah, is the best. Probably, yeah, the most active. It's just literally my name,
Okay.
Vince Dixon. So that's the best place to start, and everything links from there.
And I understand you
Um,
offer a couple different programs. You have is it a 6 week or a 4 week thing? Like a
Yeah, so I have a 6 week. I mean, I work with people kind of on quite a bespoke basis. So
yeah.
I work with a lot of people depending where they're at and what they need. But my sort of standard thing is a 6 week process, which already takes people from kind of wherever they're at to getting through a lot of this stuff, both somatically and mindset stuff. And then I do just breathwork stuff. So I have events in New York, and I'm starting to do more online events, and
Mm.
starting to work with some more kind of retreats and hospitality and things like that. So that's all on my kind of socials generally is where I put it up. But
Are you doing anything here in Pennsylvania at all? You have any plans?
not at the moment.
Okay.
But I was,
We'll have
yeah,
to maybe link up,
yeah,
man. Maybe we can create something together
yeah,
and do
absolutely,
something
absolutely,
for
always up for,
some
yeah,
businesses or
yeah,
whatever like that. I have
no,
a buddy
absolutely,
that I have in mind that we might be able to bring a project together and maybe help. He's in the finance
yeah,
world, so
yeah,
it could be beneficial.
yeah,
Breathwork,
yeah.
somatic exercise, or an event.
Yeah. Have you guys ever done a full sort of somatic breath work?
No, no.
Uh, Yeah. Yeah. Very kind of trippy. Yeah. Well, actually, you're actually doing the opposite.
Mm,
You're actually you're exhaling more carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide is the key gas, because what that allows, the carbon dioxide allows the oxygen to transfer into kind of blood and organs.
hmm.
So what you're doing is by over breathing, by breathing actively like that, you're actually letting off more carbon dioxide. So you're actually in the deficiency of carbon dioxide. So the oxygen isn't able to get into everything. So you're actually getting less oxygen. Um,
Which is where the tingles
yeah,
come from, probably.
which is where the tingles come from.
Yeah.
Carbon dioxide's a dilator, so
Mm.
when you have less of it, everything constricts, so you get less blood flow, which is what causes both. There's certain parts of the brain that kind of are regulated because you get different blood flow. It actually simulates the brain activity, simulates psychedelic experience. They've
Mm.
done brain scans where you get the same brainwave kind of down regulation of certain patterns and up regulation that mushrooms do in the same way. And then the body sensations are literally blood flow.
Mm.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Mm.
You are, it's just the oxygen isn't able to get into the body because you don't have enough carbon dioxide.
That makes sense. I can't say
Yeah.
I've ever done
So
the full episode like that or a full
yeah, we can do maybe an online session sometimes for you guys
I
to
mean,
try.
obviously I did something there, so
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm sure something will happen.
No, it's powerful because I
Yeah.
mean, there's all the physiology of it, and then
Yeah.
the other side is you literally just you're revving up, which is why it can be quite uncomfortable for people, you're revving up the sort of the sympathetic nervous system. So that fight or flight's really getting dialed in.
Yeah.
So it can really cause more anxiety, but if you can sit with it, it then dissipates. And what happens is you go into some profound places in your body, because a lot of that stuff is held somatically, of like kind of traumas or experiences or whatever tension. And so that gets released. And sometimes that can be, for some people, especially with older clients, sometimes that stuff's been there their whole life. And I've
Sure.
had people remember childhood abuse that they never remembered in sessions, because
Wow.
it just was the first time their body was able to let go.
To
It can
release
be,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it can be pretty powerful.
I've been told by many massage therapists that my body is very tense. So
Yeah.
I imagine
I
that
mean, no
something like that will
mystery from
happen.
what we've talked about.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely not a mystery at all, for sure.
Yeah.
It's
But again, just to finish off, I
yeah,
really want to emphasize that, of like, just, if you take one thing away from this
yeah.
personally, just really experimenting with that, like not having to hold it all together.
I
Like,
appreciate it,
can you
Vince.
allow
That
yourself
was
to play with that space? And just like every time you feel like come up, like, I don't have to have it all together, because there's is nowhere to go.
it's gonna
And if
help
you
me
can
for sure. It
just
will.
play with that, because even the tension in the body, you're holding it. You're trying
Oh
to
yeah, you feel it up
keep
in
it
here. You
all.
probably even saw my
Yeah.
shoulders. Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very tense. Now I do my own little practices in the moment, but
Yeah.
you hit it very hard. It's all superficial, right?
Yeah.
It's in the moment, but it keeps coming back like a hamster wheel, where it just keeps coming again and again and again.
Yeah.
And we talked about it before, where it's I got to go do my journaling. I got to do this, where I'm not focusing on
Yeah.
the root.
Just some compassion.
Yeah.
Just let go of the pressure rather than reinforce it. That's the first stage, and then you can do the practices. But from that space, not from a obligation.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time. We appreciate all
No,
that
thanks,
you've
guys. This is
done.
great. Yeah, really good to chat to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Oak Road Diaries. We really appreciate you, and we really, really do hope that it added even the tiniest bit of value to your life.
If you felt that the conversation resonated with you, we invite you to share it, because you really never know who needs to hear this today.
You can find more tools for intentional living and the 7 pillars of transformation at thehappyatrium.com, or connect with us on our socials at thehappyatrium. We'd love to see and interact with you there.
Until next time, keep tending to your inner child, one breath, one step, and one story at a time.
Take care, and we'll see you down the road.